that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory in the Métis homeland and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Iska, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. I'll start with a roll call. We'll start with our committee members. Councillor Tang.
Hello.
Hello. Councillor Elliott.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Councillor Parmar.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Councillor Salvador.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We're also joined in the room here with Councillor Morgan. Hello.
Hello.
And let's do a quick look online to see who we have from council. I see Councillor Wright.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And so far, that's it. This is committee, and folks might also be at the Alberta Municipality Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus, so there's folks running in and out between those. But we've got every member of committee here, so wonderful. Before we consider today's agenda, I will ask all members of council present if they have any pecuniary or conflicts of interest to declare regarding any of the items to be discussed. A pecuniary interest exists when an item can monetarily affect a member of council, their employer, or family member, and a conflict of interest exists when an item could affect a private interest of a member of council, their employer, or family member. Do any members of council have a pecuniary or conflict of interest to declare? Not hearing any. Therefore, we'll move to adoption of the agenda. Councillor Tang.
Yes, I will move to adopt today's agenda.
Thank you. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried 5-0. Councillor Salvador, did you want to move approval of the minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll move approval of the minutes from the March 4th, 2026 Executive Committee and the March 16th, 2026 Executive Committee non-regular.
Thank you. Any questions, errors, or omissions on those minutes? I'm not seeing any. Please vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I just need one more. We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried 5-0. Next, selection of items for debate. Please click on the board if you would like to select items. I think Councillor Salvador wants to select, so I'll rush over there first. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to select 7-1 and 7-2, please.
7-1 and 7-2. Thank you. Other selections? Councillor, somebody's clicking on. Councillor Elliott.
I'll select 7-3, please.
7-3, thank you. And Councillor Tang is selecting
7-5.
7-5, as we also have speakers there. Fantastic. I'm not seeing anyone else on the board. I'll take a motion to approve all remaining items.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parmar. Please vote. We had a mic check for Mike.
I'm a yes.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
That was so hilarious, I think.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried 5-0. Madam Clerk, did you want to review the items that have been passed?
Thank you, Mayor. This afternoon, Executive Committee has passed the recommendations in the following reports without debate. Item 5.1, the revised due date for below market sale of a portion of Athlone Park for the Africa Centre will be returning April 22nd, 2026. Item 5.2 does not require a motion as it was dealt with as the March 17th City Council meeting. Item 7.4, affordable housing grant, Brentwood Developments. Item 7.6, sale of land below market value, Heritage Valley. Item 7.7, bylaw 21242 to designate the Ross Flats Apartments as a municipal historic resource. Amendment number 1 will proceed to council. Item 7.8, bylaw 21432 to designate the Wood Residence as a municipal historic resource will proceed to council. Item 7.9, bylaw 21410 to designate the Ukrainian National Federation of Canada Building, Edmonton branch as a municipal historic resource will proceed to council.
Fantastic. That's what I have. The Brentwood team and the housing team just like booked it out. They didn't even wait for you to finish reading. They were just like, we're done. We don't have to be here anymore. So that's wonderful. Well, pass along our congratulations to the team, Ms. Lyman, because they were like, we're just running away. They're like, it's sunny, let us go outside and enjoy the weather. And the Brentwood too, so if they can't even hear us, they're gone. And everyone else is great too. That was the Heritage Valley, the historic items. Lots of good things already done. And we're only 6 minutes into the meeting. Fantastic. Well, let's continue on. We've done the vote on selections not for debate. Requests to speak. We do have a number of requests to speak. Councillor Tang is going to move those.
Sure. I'll move that executive committee hear from the following speakers in panels when appropriate. On 7-1 and 7-2, we have Ellen Bolstaff from Alberta Ave Community League, Anne Guin, Alberta Ave Business Association, Eric Estrada, Alberta Ave Business Association, Christy Moore, Arts on the Ave, Philip Muse. 7-3 on 2026, the CRL update. Ijaz Shiraz Ali Bai Wolf, Civic Labs Society, Patrick Lalonde, Club 97, Amin Samuel, ETA 360 Studios, Inc., Colin Campbell, Civic Labs Society. 7-5, River Crossing, Capital Profile, Eric Gormley, Linda Duncan, North Saskatchewan River Valley Conservation Society, Tom Radford, North Saskatchewan River Valley Conservation Society, Christine Kowalchuk, River Valley Conservation Coalition, Gerald Delorme, Beaver Hills House Peoples, aka Edmonton Stragglers, and Summer Grambois.
Thank you.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried 5-0. There are no separate requests for time specific. We're just going to go in order, and since all three items have requests to speak, we'll just continue. We'll go in the order as listed on the agenda, which would mean we'll be starting with items 7-1 and 7-2, which are cross-referenced. This is the derelict non-residential tax subclass, so that team can feel free to come up and grab a seat as I'm reading through this. 7-3 will be the next item. Yeah, come on up if you're ready for 7-1, 7-2 while I'm just reading out. 7-3 will be the next item after this, which will be the CRL update. 7-5 will be the final item for river crossing. As folks are getting settled, I'll just do a few things. First, I'm just going to do a quick reminder to all of our public speakers today, and that before we begin our discussions, I want to share my expectations for the conduct of everyone participating to ensure a safe and inclusive environment and workplace. So these expectations apply to both in-person and virtual attendees. Hearing from the public is an important part of the Council's process, so we know the full diversity of opinions that exists in our community. As meeting chair, my role is not to moderate the nature of the content being discussed, but to ensure behaviors support a safe, respectful, and neutral space for my colleagues, city employees, and the public. Disrespectful comments, including those directed at individual staff members or other speakers, profane language or gestures, and behaviors such as shouting, cheering, or clapping, or political campaigning will not be tolerated. In addition, use of the raise hand feature, chat, emoticon response, or AI note-taking tools in the virtual meeting are not permitted. And I will direct the city clerk to have security remove anyone violating these expectations. I will not provide any additional warnings. Once removed, the person will not be permitted to rejoin the meeting in person. The meeting is being live streamed, and everyone is welcome to watch online. And while, of course, when we bring up the panels, I'll go through it, but just a reminder, each panelist is going to have 5 minutes to speak, and with 5 speakers, 4 and then 6, so we got 15 speakers total, and 3 hours and 20 minutes plus a 15-minute break. We are going to be extremely tight on your time. So if you haven't pre-read your speech, get it ready, because if you're 5 minutes and 1 second, I'll be cutting you off, because I want to try to finish this meeting today, and there's a lot of speakers. So we'll do our best. And with that in mind, I'm going to go to administration for the presentation on 7-1 and 7-2. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors, members of committee. I'm Kate Watt. I'm the branch manager of assessment and taxation. With me is Anton Szabo, the director of taxation, policy and programs, and Greg Hutchinson, the manager of policy and programs. And Greg will provide you some opening presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, committee. We have a brief presentation to summarize the 2 reports we're bringing forward today. Next slide, please. So our first report today considers the possibility of creating a derelict non-residential tax subclass. The derelict residential subclass has shown that this approach can have a positive impact, but a non-residential subclass requires capital investment in Edmonton's enterprise application for assessment and tax, and the non-residential context raises some additional considerations. First, the city has limited options to create tax subclasses within the non-residential class. The authority to create a derelict non-residential subclass comes from the city charter and comes with some conditions. For example, properties can only be assessed into the subclass if they are unoccupied for a year. Unoccupied is not defined in the charter, and though we can specify in the bylaw how we will interpret the term, it could be difficult to prove in practice. Our interpretation would likely take the form of a series of tests or conditions that would indicate non-occupation. For example, if the property is secured against entry, lacks utility connections, and has no active business or development permits, that may indicate the property is not occupied. However, as long as this condition is a requirement of the subclass, it'll complicate the defense of derelict non-residential assessments. Any non-residential tax subclass must also be applied across the entire city, so there's no possibility of starting with the mature area, for example. The charter does provide authority to define the term derelict for a subclass. This provides some flexibility, and the definition of the current residential tax subclass provides a good starting point, and further refinement is also possible. Next slide, please. To estimate the prevalence of derelict non-residential properties, we looked at existing data sources, such as the Problem Properties Initiative, the Community Property Safety Team, Alberta Health Services orders, existing assessment and tax records, and more. We reviewed each property to determine whether it would meet a definition of dereliction similar to the residential subclass, and we found about 20 that did. These 20 properties had a combined assessment of $29 million in 2025, which translates to about $700,000 in taxes. This should be considered a rough estimate, since we've not yet formally defined derelict in a non-residential context. The data sources included in this review are largely complaint-based, and there are likely more derelict properties in more remote areas of the city that are less likely to generate complaints. On the other hand, we've not evaluated whether these properties have been unoccupied for a full year, so some of these candidate properties may not ultimately be eligible. Next slide, please. Tax subclasses enable council to set a different tax rate for the subclass, but again, there are constraints. The MGA does not allow for the highest non-residential rate to be more than 5 times the lowest residential rate. So for example, based on 2025 rates, the maximum tax rate for any non-residential subclass is about 57% higher than the normal non-residential rate. Again, those are based on 2025 rates. So at that higher rate, if we were to tax them at the maximum rate in 2025, those 20 candidate properties would have generated about $1.1 million in taxes instead of $700,000. That 57% differential will shift a little bit every year as well. So once a higher tax rate is applied to the subclass, council may wish to provide some tax forgiveness for owners that fix up or demolish their properties, similar to the residential subclass. However, before a higher tax rate for a non-residential subclass can be considered, additional investment is required in Edmonton's assessment and tax enterprise application. So with that in mind, if council wishes to proceed with a non-residential tax subclass, administration recommends the following timeline. Next slide, please. The first step is to obtain the necessary resources to administer the subclass. So this includes the capital investment in the system, as well as the operating funding to support assessors in preparing and defending these assessments. Once these resources are confirmed, the subclassing bylaw could be amended in 2027 to formally create the subclass. This would allow assessors to begin identifying eligible properties and confirming their occupation status throughout 2027, with the first derelict non-residential assessment notices mailed in January 2028. These notices would be sent with a letter warning that the property is considered derelict and that this may mean higher taxes. However, we recommend that council maintain the normal non-residential tax rate on these properties for at least 1 year. This would provide time to complete the capital investment in the system, to refine our assessment processes, and would provide sufficient notice for property owners to address the dereliction before incurring higher costs. Once our system is prepared to handle additional tax rates, administration will bring forward a report to council providing tax rate options for consideration. Next slide. Our second report today provides a high-level overview of the categories of policy tools available for the city to influence private sector decisions regarding vacant residential and non-residential land. The primary tools are tax subclassing, tax incentive bylaws and grants, cost recovery infrastructure funding, and direct involvement in horizontal development. Horizontal development refers to servicing infrastructure such as roads, water, and sewer lines. Now, as I mentioned earlier, authority for tax subclasses differs between residential and non-residential property. Non-residential subclasses must be applied across the whole city, and there is some risk in a vacant non-residential tax subclass because of ambiguity in the term vacant. We have more flexibility for residential subclasses, but ensuring that we maximize the benefit and minimize the risks will require clear articulation of the objective we want to achieve. Tax incentive bylaws and grants are another flexible tool to influence private sector decisions, but they come with costs, which include program operating costs in addition to the grants or foregone revenue. There are also opportunities for cost-recovered infrastructure funding, which can include local improvement taxes and/or specialized program funds. And the city also participates directly in horizontal development in some circumstances, as described in the report, and in Council's land development policy. Thank you very much. We'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Before we do questions, we will go to our speakers. So you can all stay seated. I think we're going to stick, because we're sticking with this system now. So I'm going to call up our speakers. Alan Bolstad's first, so you can make your way over there. The clerk will help you. I'm going to call the other names. Ann Nguyen is virtual, correct? Or is Ann? No. Ann's here as well, right here. So is Eric Estrada. So yeah, you two can, you can each sort of get up and we'll get in a bit of a line there. Christy Morin, I don't see in person, but I think is online, correct? Christy, you're there,
Correct.
right?
I'm here.
Thank you. Realized I forgot to call her at some point. Anyway, unrelated to this. Philip, yeah, just reminding myself, I failed at phone calls. Philip Muse is in person. There we are, Philip. Perfect. So you're all ready. So as mentioned, I'm just going to go through just as one quick reminder. So as we said, we've approved our speakers who can make their presentation. Speakers are going to be heard in panels. So once you speak, make sure you just grab a seat behind. It will, because there might be questions for you once we do this. The clerk is, of course, running the official timer, and that's also displayed in the virtual meeting. The light goes green for the first 4 minutes, turns yellow when there's 1 minute remaining, and flashes red when 5 minutes are up. And as mentioned, I'm going to be annoyingly firm on that, so help me help you is what I would ask. And when everyone has had a chance to present, members of council may ask questions of you or other panel members. So for this reason, make sure you remain in the meeting either virtually or at the seat at the back until all questions have been asked of your panel. And I just ask for those participating virtually, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, you can reach out to the office of the city clerk using the contact information provided in your confirmation of registration or at city.clerk@edmonton.ca. If you're here in person, city staff will guide you to your seat, which we have found you up there. So we're going to get started, starting with Alan Bolstad. Please go ahead. Oh, we'll turn on, is there a button to turn on? I think that might, there we go. No, let's try it again. Here we go.
Maybe I'm not close
There we go.
enough.
No, yeah,
Gotta get
perfect. You're in now.
Okay.
We got you.
All right. Well, it's nice to be back again. Security is definitely changing around here. That's a whole nother topic, I guess. But with everything you said about time, I better get moving with my presentation. So I did have a few pictures. I didn't know what order they're going to show up here, but I see now. So I'll just try to throw this all together. There's half a dozen pictures, but I wanted to talk about derelict residential as well as commercial as well as vacant properties, because it's all kind of tied together. First of all, I want to say that speaking on behalf, I should be clear, I'm speaking on behalf of Alberta Avenue Community League and that area specifically. Really appreciate the efforts that the city has made to board up and secure so many houses, problem properties that we've had a lot of problems with in recent years, and has made great progress in that regard in making our community safer, fewer fires, all of that kind of stuff. I think it's been well documented. Unfortunately, a lot of these are sitting there far too long. This one here is takes up a prime location just at the entrance of 12th Avenue and 193rd Street, well over 5 years. It's a fire trap. It's had a fire in it. It's got holes knocked in the roof. If you want to just keep moving through the pictures here a little bit, there's the side view. You know, it's a real eyesore for the community, and has worn out its welcome a long time ago. So it seems to me that the city needs to take a look at what it can do to take these places down. I've heard there's a challenge. The city's got issues with coming up with the funds to knock places down. And yes, you get your money returned to you in property taxes later, but I've been told that you're having a tough time finding the funds to knock them down to begin with. So I would ask, are you charging enough? Are you charging interest on the money that you're spending initially and getting back later so that you're whole, so that the city's kept whole? And I encourage you to pursue that idea or check with your administration to see if you're charging enough to cover your costs and cover the cost of spending that money up front and waiting to get your taxes back later. So that's a problem. Just flipping through the pictures here, and I'm sure my time is roaring along. There's two houses next to each other that are derelict. They're less than a foot away from another house that's occupied. It continues to be a problem, so I'm just trying to emphasize that these places just can't sit there forever. I'd be scared silly if I was the person living in the house next to it, given the potential for a fire that would obviously continue to my place. I just keep moving along. So now we're on to vacant lands, commercial vacant space here. Those two derelict houses are right across the back lane from this particular site, obviously not helping this owner sell his property. And so again, it just emphasizes how this is kind of all connected a lot of times, and we really need to get moving on that front. In terms of the vacant properties, yeah, I encourage you to do what you can to get them moving. I hate to see people speculating on properties, just sitting on them, waiting for others to enhance the neighborhood, to put up new developments in the area so that they can capitalize on an increased value of their property. I think, and while the vacant property does nothing for the neighborhood, so I encourage you to do whatever you can on your tax front or whatever tools you have to get those properties moving. And then moving on to the derelict commercial properties. There was a picture just a second ago that was showing some on 12th Avenue, and here's another one right on the other side of 12th Avenue. I'll just move along, etc., to another photo. There's another one just next to it, and of course it's next to the vacant property. And so, I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make here, and certainly in this situation and many others, all of this is connected. So yeah, I would encourage you, and again on behalf of the league, to do anything you can to get these moving. This is basically the front door to our community. 112th Avenue is where most people first see our neighborhood, when you come from downtown at least, and many people aren't going to look beyond that. You know, when they see a bunch of closed commercial properties that have been sitting there for many years, boarded up, a vacant property next to it, and then a couple of derelict houses next to it, well, it doesn't work. So my main message here is to get aggressive as you can, to use whatever tools you've got with your tax rates, with your ability to take houses down or buildings down yourself. Maybe set a target as to what is a reasonable amount of time for a building to sit there. Is it 2 years? What is it? And then get information from your administration. How often are you hitting your targets? A lot of these places are 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and more. You know, and if you're not making your targets, why not? What's going wrong here? So there's a number of things I think the city can do, and I just want to encourage you to get as aggressive as possible and do so.
Appreciate
there you go.
There we go. Perfect. Ann Nguyen is next. And yep, come on up. And you'll have up to 5 minutes, and yeah, the timer, of course, you can see right up on there as well in the right corner, so on the screen. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Ann Nguyen, and I'm a resident of the Alberta Avenue area, a business owner, and also currently serving on the board of directors of the Alberta Avenue Business Association. Many of our members are property owners. I'm here today to speak about the importance of stronger action toward derelict commercial properties. So derelict commercial buildings decrease the vibrancy of a community and pose real safety risks for nearby businesses and residents. by attracting vandalism, illegal dumping, and other criminal activity, not mentioned to increase fire risk, especially during winter months. For me, I moved to Edmonton 5 years ago after living in major urban centers in Asia and Europe, where land is treated as precious and limited resource. Seeing prime commercial lots sitting vacant or neglected for years on Alberta Avenue was a real culture shock for me. Active storefronts create safety and confidence. When streets are maintained, people stop, spend, and return. But vacant and derelict properties send the opposite message. They discourage investment and weaken the momentum to our corridor is working hard to build. For this reason, I strongly support the creation of a derelict non-residential tax subclass. Property that remain neglected while consuming city enforcement and emergency resources should not be treated as the same as business that invest daily in maintaining their spaces. Accountability through a higher tax on owners who do not maintain their buildings is only fair to those contributing positively to the community. We must also address speculative land holding within Edmonton redeveloping areas. Allowing land to sit empty for years limits economic activity, slows revitalization, and reduces opportunity for compact, mixed-use growth that benefits both the local economy and the city tax base. Tools like tax subclasses, alongside incentives such as redevelopment grants, can help move these sites toward productive use. In conclusion, Alberta Avenue has strong momentum, but it is being held back by a small number of neglected properties. Stronger accountability will help ensure every property contributes to the safety and prosperity of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You can grab a seat and we'll bring up Eric Estrada next. Please go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everybody, members of the committee. My name is Eric Estrada. I am the Executive Director for Alberta Avenue Business Association. And our business association has both business owners that own their property and business owners that lease their properties. And we are excited that this committee is looking to address a big problem. Vacancy and derelict properties are not a passive condition. It is an active drag on the health of the commercial street. Every derelict storefront or abandoned building lowers the perceived safety and desirability of the properties around it. It discourages new investments, reduces foot traffic for the neighborhood and neighboring businesses, and also sends a message to the community that there is no accountability. On Alberta Avenue, we see this impact directly. Our members work very hard to maintain attractive, welcoming storefronts, often at significant cost. When property next door sits vacant or deteriorates year after year, all that investment is undermined. Specifically on the derelict non-residential subclass, Alberta Avenue Business Association supports a dedicated tax subclass for derelict non-residential properties. We encourage the city to ensure the definition of derelict is clear, enforceable, and applied consistently so that policy has real teeth. And where applicable, we'll love to collaborate with our city administrations. So it will be ideal if you mandate that administration collaborates where applicable so that they can increase the body of evidence needed for making this enforceable. I want to close with the Alberta Avenue Business Association. It is the business is in the business of building a stronger and more vibrant community, and this change in the bylaw or this addition to the tax will be very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next will be Christy Morin. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Hello, Executive Council. Thank you so much for having me come speak today. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but nice to see you all. I am super excited about this day. Honestly, since 2005, we as a community and leaders in the advocacy of 118 Avenue, 111 Avenue, from Nate to Exhibition Lands, have been trying to find a way to hit below the belt with these particular types of really they are horrible buildings that are allowed to stand and have nothing that we can do to bring them down. So to come to today, thank you so much for your advocacy, Councillor Salvador, because honestly, it is fantastic. So we know there's a lot of work to do, as administration was chatting, and Greg Hutchinson's presentation, thank you for that. What I was looking at is, oftentimes people will say, well, do we really need to do this? Is this something that really is necessary? The amount of city funds that are going into the maintaining and somewhat consideration of keeping these properties like standing is unbelievable. There's fires, there's graffiti, there's drug use, there's crime. Truly, the health and wellness and safety and danger are so strongly surrounding these particular properties that we as a community actually get tired of calling things in. We're so fatigued by going, oh, okay, that's the one on 111 again, next to the aviary, or this is across the street from here. And the residents are just getting fatigued of calling these properties in. And oftentimes people will say, well, we don't have enough dots on the board having calls in for service. Well, that's because they've been standing so long, and the community now has just sort of just given in that there's nothing more we can do. So community will rally, to Eric's point. We will rally. If there is need for administration to bring together small table discussions, what can be done, I think the MGA and whatever needs to be done there to be able to make changes, we would be part of that as Arts on the Ave, 120%, and to be able to back the city in making these changes. I think the timeline seems really long. When I was looking at the presentation, it would be great if we could expedite that timeline and make it a shorter, more expeditious timeline, because these buildings, honestly, like the team has been saying earlier, and I'm sure Philip coming after me, it actually detracts from the economy. As we are working in revitalizing these neighborhoods, it actually repels them. And people are not attracted to coming up and setting up shop next door to a property that's been burnt 3 times, that has boarded up windows. Even as Arts on the Ave, like we've been trying to do artwork on certain businesses because they're just so horribly ugly that we're trying to bring some kind of beautification to it. But we're just really wanting to let you know we're here. We would support this 110%. If there's a way to expedite it, that is a great move in the right direction. And I just can't say like like how to define things. I think we should just try it. Right now, the city of Edmonton is leading so strongly with the residential derelict properties, and we did it so quickly. Right? It happened so quickly because there was such leadership from the top, and knowing that we have strength from the bottom pushing up as well. I think this could be done, and there might be stuff that we find out, needs to be changed along the way, but I would hesitate to hold back by just looking at things and saying we need, 5 to 6 years. I would ask to bring it down in a shorter time frame. But again, I'm here at the table, would love to be part of any stakeholder groups or whatever that the administration is looking for in strength in bringing this together. And yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you very much. And last up is Philip Muse. Please come on up to the mic, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip Muse. I run the aviary on 111th and 94th, right on Norwood Boulevard there. And as it's been talked about already here by Christy and Mr. Estrada there, yeah, the whole strip has just been left by City Council for, I don't know, numerous reasons, and there just hasn't seem to be any cooperations between the two wards on the two sides of 111th Avenue in the past, and I mean, that's just a huge problem, and I try very, very hard to keep my business afloat. I feel that the independent arts is very important to this community. It's important to tourism. I host musicians and artists from all over the world, including the Juno Awards and everything like that we're all so proud of here, and grassroots and all sorts of artists. And it's very frustrating to day in and day out to look at the neighborhood and see, we call it the plywood window district of Edmonton now, and it's covered in graffiti, and it's really sad. And you guys probably heard about the fire that was next door that there was a photo of as well. I was mere millimeters away from losing my business there. And this is nothing new to City Council. Like, that building next door has a calendar on the wall from 2003. It hasn't been in business for like 23, 24 years, and just sitting there, constantly getting broken into, constant fires. January's fire wasn't the first one, and everyone knows the history of across the street there too, with Carmen Revez's properties just being constant annoyance like that. So moving forward, moving forward, I'd like to see some more cooperation between the councillors on the downtown ward and our ward, Métis. I'd like to see some more resources put into it, like we get broken windows and all sorts of things that happen due to the derelict properties that are around us. So some more resources, and I'm in definitely full support of the derelict non-residential tax increase. Yeah.
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much. Yeah, appreciate that. Any questions for our speakers? Councillor Salvador, you've selected it. Any questions for them, or?
Those are really comprehensive presentations. I don't have a ton of questions, but I'm going to be following up with administration on a number of the points raised.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone else having clicked on. I think that's because it's very thorough. So let's, thank you all. You can grab your regular seats, and I am going to go to Councillor Salvador because I think she's ready to make a motion, because speaking of action, and folks want to see it, I figure we'll just change the order a little bit, let her do a motion right off the bat.
Sure, happy to jump to that and then ask a number of questions. So I believe Clerk has the wording. If that could go up on the screen, that'd be awesome. And I'll read it in. So
you can start reading it out.
I'm just making sure I have the right wording
perfect. Yeah, let's
up on the
wait
screen.
to get
There's
that.
been a few versions.
And the reason we're just going slightly out of order is just because we have a lot of speakers and a lot of items, and we're going to do our best to get through it. And it feels like this one, I don't want to presuppose too much, feels like there's a lot of alignment to do some, get to work. So I figure might as well just get to work on this.
Okay, I'm just going to hope it's the right version that
All right, you started off.
I'm going to move that administration bring forward an unfunded service package for consideration in the 2027 to 2030 budget to establish a non-residential derelict tax subclass and develop a non-residential derelict tax subclass and associated bylaw pending funding approval. It's a multi-part motion. Second part is that administration bring forward a report with options for vacant residential subclass within the redeveloping area that includes serviced properties that had but no longer have a permanent improvement and have had no active development over a period of time. And then third, that administration bring forward a report with options for a vacant non-residential subclass to address vacancy of developable parcels.
Do you want to take 2 minutes to introduce, and then I can give you your 5 minutes to ask questions? So,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Thank you so much. So I'll just take a moment to introduce and explain these motions. So first off, I just want to recognize all the speakers that we just heard from, as well as community members that I think we've all been hearing from over the last few years. Around the importance of this work. You know, we heard from local businesses today who are working hard to support vibrancy on our main streets, and just how easily that can be compromised and undermined when there's a vacant or derelict structure next door. We know that these sites can have real impacts on the health, safety, and well-being of our neighborhoods overall, and as we just heard from Philip, it can have serious and detrimental impacts on adjacent properties. Fire risks are very real on these sites, so I'm very supportive of taking any and all next possible steps to advance this work, and that's what this motion gets at. So the first part is focused on advancing the derelict non-residential subclass. It talks about bringing forward options for budget discussions to make sure that we can properly fund and resource this work. From there, understanding sort of the sequencing of this, we'd be able to have the derelict non-residential tax subclass bylaw brought forward as well. The second and third parts are focused on vacant properties. Part 2 is focused on vacant residential, and then part 3 is vacant non-residential. One of the challenges, as we heard from administration, is being able to define vacancy, right? And making sure that we are achieving the outcomes we want to achieve as a council, as a city, with the definitions and boundedness that we provide. So that's what I'm attempting to get at with part 2 here. When we talk about vacant, that could be very wide and very sweeping, but this specifies that we're talking about properties that are their serviced properties that had but no longer have permanent improvements on them and that haven't been active over a certain period of time. I know in the report in front of us, there was some discussion about 5 years, 7 years. I'm really open to seeing what administration has to recommend and what would be the best path forward around providing that clarity and consistency that we all need. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, and you can ask your questions. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Like a long time on the mic. Okay, so just jumping into some questions, I want to ask about timeline to start with. So we heard from speakers just the urgency of this work, but I'm hoping you can help me understand what are some of the constraints and opportunities to move faster, but also recognizing I think there's some software limitations that might need capital investment before we can physically undertake this work.
Yes, it is a timeline constraint based in technology. As you know, our city is 440,000 properties large. It's an enormous system, and our system takes care of both the assessment side and the taxation side. So for us to build new subclasses, we have to go to the system and basically re-architect a large portion of what creates the tax bylaw that funds 60% of what we do. It is quite a large undertaking. Moreover, that piece of architecting can't happen until we finish our current transformation project, wherein we're replatforming the system so that it basically meets modern needs and modern requirements. So that is the technical reason why this just isn't possible for us to create a non-residential tax subclass until that work has been done. But we have suggested a pathway so that some work can be done. For example, we could set up the subclasses, we could communicate, we will do the assessment work where we're actually identifying these properties and adding them to the roll. We just won't be able to impose a higher tax rate on non-residential properties until that work is done.
Okay, so does this motion allow us to go as far as we possibly can go within those constraints?
It does, yes.
Okay. And just so I understand, I believe so some of the upgrades and work that you currently referenced, council previously had funded that, correct? On the tax.
Yes, we came in the last capital cycle and asked for some money to begin this work. It transpires, as sometimes it does with technology, that more funding is required. So we will be making a submission for that additional top-up funding in the capital budget that will be before you next month.
Great. So you don't need any direction on that? That's going to be included for consideration?
We do need that money to finish that work, and yes, so that is an administration-driven request. The tax subclassing work is in your motion, and that we do need direction for.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that clarity. I just want to make sure I'm understanding sequencing here. So if this moves forward today, we will be able to have that conversation at budget around the unfunded service package. And then is the next step to establish the actual bylaw for?
It is. There's some fluidity there. If we have the intention, we can absolutely start collecting the data from the sources that we already have identified. We do need to establish that 1 year of lack of occupation under the existing legislation. So we need a amount of time in order to make sure that that process is
Okay, so this gives
articulated and
you-
followed. We can establish that subclass at any point during that time. My recommendation would be for us to at least have a better sense of what number of derelict properties we have before we implement a subclass for them.
Okay, so it gives you enough of a runway to be able to do that in the lead up to the creation of the actual bylaw.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, like, through this conversation and anything subsequent in council, we would be taking this conversation as the direction to do that work.
Great.
And not to create any additional headaches to.
Okay.
Yeah, we would be moving forward, council's direction would be clear.
Great, that's definitely my intent. Okay, I'll have some more questions, but I won't start one because I won't have enough time to give you an answer.
Thank you. Councillor Tang?
Yeah, great. I'm curious how, when compared to the residential subclass that we did create, did you, how long was like between setting up the subclass and proper implementation?
So the unique thing about our residential subclass is that it is taxed at the same equivalent rate to our non-residential class.
So you didn't need to upgrade software?
So we
that
did
kind of
not
stuff?
need to
Yep.
upgrade the software.
Yep.
We needed to categorize it differently and catalog it differently, but we didn't need to re-architect the tax calculator.
So there's a little bit difference between kind of what we used to do and kind of what we're talking about here.
Yes.
And then did you notice that when we had the discussion and about the residential subclass, between like the full rollout, did you see that prompt any changes in behavior for property owners?
Yes, I would say that this has been one of the most successful changes that we've made in the assessment and taxation field. Prone to hyperbole, but in my career, we have got a lot of interest and excitement from jurisdictions, both local and international, seeing the implementation of this subclass as a real success. It hasn't been without its challenges, of course, but overall it has been more successful, I think, than we anticipated.
I guess my point is that, I think the motions are very strong and would like some kind of plan moving forward, but the fact that we're talking about it, that we're serious about penalizing essentially, bad property owners for not taking care of their properties also prompts some actions as well, right?
It certainly appeared to on the residential side. Greg will have data on that. Like, do you have the number of properties that we see change status from derelict to some other status?
Yeah, we do have some stats on how many of those derelict properties on the residential side have been demolished and remediated.
I think I've seen those in memos. Anyways, my point was simply, good discussion. We'll have a plan with these motions, but also just us talking about it is also a good indication to landlords. In the second report, I think you talk about the St. Albert example, and then their timeline was set for 7 years, because I think one of the speakers talked about why are these allowed to be around for so long? Shouldn't we have some kind of standard? In St. Albert, they set it as 7 years. Is that reasonable? Is that like just a random number?
Greg, if you wouldn't mind, you connected with St. Albert on this?
Sure, yeah, they do have under St. Albert's bylaw, a property has to be vacant with no improvements for 7 years. I can't tell you exactly where that 7 years came from. It's been in place since 2015.
Yeah, because we will want to have something kind of similar to that, but something reasonable as well, right? Like, how long has a vacant lot been vacant
I think that
for?
would be a reasonable thing to do. There's always going to be some subjectiveness to any number you choose for how long something should remain vacant.
And then do you know if they've been successful with their program at all? Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so they said that they didn't have enough, they have about 15 properties in their subclass every year. Some come on and come off as they go through it. They felt the sample size was too small to do a kind of a statistical evaluation, but anecdotally, they found that it has been successful in prompting owners to do something with it.
Well, that's promising, thank you. And then in the report, you also, I think both of them, you mentioned opportunities for some provincial advocacy. Can you just like highlight those quickly?
Well, I think what we're flagging there is that our understanding of the province's intention with having a 5-to-1 ratio was to limit sort of egregious taxation of non-residential. I don't believe that they had contemplated this kind of example, so
So we need to flag it for them that this
yes,
is a unique case, so that we're not going to frequently just,
perhaps
yeah.
like the 3 times increase for our derelict residential, I do believe is part, like it is quite a bit of a higher tax rate,
Okay.
even though the assessment of those properties is quite low. So
Okay.
it's not as sticker shock as you might believe. On the non-residential side, we would only be able to increase it at the moment by about 57%.
Right.
Is that enough of an incentive to push somebody
I'm running out of time here, sorry. I just
with
had-
one of those
Yes.
properties is what we're wondering.
Okay, so back to the mover. Just to close the loop on that, I think it's great to exercise all the tools we have. What about advocacy, and would you consider putting that into your motion?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point and an opportunity that I'd be excited about. I think there were some good advocacy opportunities outlined in the report. I'm running out of time.
The answer was yes, I heard. And you
Yes,
can come back.
yes
We're out
is
of
the
time.
answer. I'll come back and say.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just got a couple questions, one for mover and administration. My first one, in your presentation, you talk about properties must be unoccupied for at least 1 year. So being a devil's advocate, how do we stop a homeowner going, oh, I'm going to rent out my property for 2 weeks, therefore resetting the clock on that? Have we thought about mechanisms to try to address that? So
it's not actually a problem on the residential side. That's a condition for non-residential. And yes, we think about it a lot, and we talk about it a lot. The point is that we would be opening ourselves up to a challenge in front of the assessment review boards. What is the meaning of unoccupied is not defined in the Act, so we would need to provide that interpretation, and then it really comes down to sort of a quasi-judicial decision by the assessment review board.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And that leads to the next point, because I really like this motion. And when the mover puts in for point number 2, vacant residential, would no longer have a permanent improvement? Because I guess through administration, we have to try to define that, because hypothetically, if it's a vacant land and the owner puts up a fence, is that considered improvement? Is it not? So I'm just looking for parameters within that. I don't know if you can elaborate anything on that.
There is sort of a body of appraisal theory that we use in assessment to define what is and is not an improvement. A fence is considered an improvement, but because the legislation is silent on what it means by vacant, there is room for interpretation. So that's what we would be leaning into, and it would be a case of testing these sorts of definitions in front of the boards should we need to. Cam Ashmore is online if you would like to ask anything more sort of that legal definitional. He's a fantastic resource.
Okay, I'll pause on that, because that'll be something that if we get this motion through, we can take away. And how do you collect data on what's considered a derelict housing? Because I'm just speaking from my previous career. We'd often, the police get calls from the risk team to show up for safety for that house, so the risk team can go in, clear it, make it, board it up, that type of thing, which takes police away from their daily activities and what they should or should not be doing, because I think it's a waste of resources, to be honest. However, this is a necessity to ensure that the risk team is safe. Do you collect the data from the risk team as well?
We do have, like wherever we have access, we take it on board. The responsibility, though, is still with the assessor and the assessing team to test within the field whether this property meets the definition in the bylaw. So we actually have our assessors in the field every year to collect this data. As we expand to a larger city, that resourcing becomes more challenging. This is an incredibly big city. So we may be needing to look at different ways of collecting this data. Greg, do you have anything on the sort of where we get the data from external sources?
Yeah, we definitely work closely with the problem properties team and the risk team as well. So we use them to identify candidates. Within our current residential subclass, it's within the mature area. We send assessors driving every one of those streets. As we expand to the rest of the city, we'll be relying more on some of those external data sources like the problem properties team. Also, you know, when a property gets boarded up, often the cost of doing so ends up on their tax account. So we use that as another data source to identify where a candidate might be. As Kate says, it always comes back to the assessor to make that decision. So those just identify the candidates for us to go take a look at to decide if they meet the definition or not to put them on the list.
Okay. Thank you. And in addition to that, do you try to collect some data as well from the EPS? Because I know they frequently attend problem households or that fit the definition of derelict housing. Is that collected as well as part of your statistics?
Yeah, EPS is part of the Problem Properties Initiative team. They're represented on that group, along with Fire Rescue, Alberta Health Services. It's a very cross-agency type approach that they use. So that's my understanding of EPS's tie-in into us is through that Problem Properties team.
Okay, thank you, and I'm out of time.
Thank you, Councillor Parmar.
Thank you, Mayor Knack. I just wanted to ask about the technology. What do we know what the cost is?
The cost of, oh goodness, sorry, that's very loud. The cost of the re-architecting for the tax calculator, so the establishment of the tax subclass, technology would be between $700,000 and $1 million, is our current estimate from our good friends at OCT, and that would be on top of the existing funding for the replatforming of the system as a whole.
Okay, and how much, like I would say, staff administration time would be required to be doing the work that we're asking today?
That I'm not as confident in answering because we're assessment and taxation. What I can say is that this is a system that is wholly owned by the City of Edmonton, so we are in the fortunate position of having in-house developers who are tasked with working on this team. So we have some flexibility in where that resourcing is allocated. The challenge, though, is that because this is a boutique piece of software, we're not able to contract any piece of this out. So we are constrained and also enabled by the in-house nature of this.
So I appreciate the motion, and I absolutely agree that we need to do something with these properties. What I am concerned about is just the amount of money and cost that it's going to take for a very small amount of properties. And so is there a way that administration could actually look at doing this outside of our current, like it's not the same as our system. So it's currently 20 properties. Is there actually a way that you would be able to do this? I don't want to use the word manually.
Yeah, manually.
But I am saying manually. But I think in terms of if we're looking at these 20 properties, we're looking at an increase of $400,000. We are already in a very significant financial situation with the City of Edmonton, so we would be losing money. Although I completely agree that this is the way we need to go with these properties, I need to understand: is there a different way forward?
So without being able to go and ask the absolute necessary people, I would very much not recommend. This is taxation. It is a part of good financial regulation. If we're taking things outside of the system and outside of the audit trail, I would be uncomfortable, put it that way. We would need to sort of investigate how we could make sure that even removing this small number from our overall process would still keep that process integral and safeguarded.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of safeguards at the City of Edmonton with our audits and with a lot of different people, so I'm not too concerned about that, but I appreciate that. The other thing I'm concerned about is that the residential tax was 3 times the amount, right? Which is a huge amount. This is 57%, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and so to me, it's not as big of a stick as the residential, and I don't even think we're comparing apples to apples when we think about the residential to the commercial. I'm wondering if there are other tools in the toolbox that aren't taxation that we could use for these properties. Like, somebody talked about demolition, and I'm just wondering if there are other opportunities besides taxing that we could do that would get us the same outcome and probably for a lot cheaper.
I mean, that's a good question. I'm the branch manager of assessment and taxation, so it's not really my world, but there may be somebody on the delegation who could speak to that.
I think I would say that the city has done other things to address these properties as well. The Problem Properties Initiative is a great example of that. non-residential properties are included within their scope, and I think that's obviously I can't speak for them. I understand that's becoming a larger part of their focus, and they're the ones that bring those other tools to bear, I think, for the most part. But as Ms. Watts says, that's a little beyond our expertise to speak to.
Okay, and I'm very comfortable with the non-residential tax pieces of this motion. The vacant residential one is that's a very new, I would say, window. Does anybody else do that across Alberta?
Well, yes, St. Albert is the example that we've included, and I believe there are some other jurisdictions that do this. It is far from typical, but it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, I'm just not even, I guess this would be a report that comes forward, because I'm not even sure if it would be, it would be a very hard, I'm worried that it would take a lot of time for administration in order to do something like that and not have the bang of the buck there.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you very much. Very excited to see this work come forward and the motion on the floor. I'm a little confused by the direction and next steps. So I think I understood in the report that we could provide direction to prepare the subclass, that could be prepared in the coming months and then be implemented in 2027, but with no differential in the charge. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And is this what this motion does? Or does it say we're going to not do too much over the next 6 to 8 months, wait until we have budget, and then we would move forward so it wouldn't be implemented until 2028?
We would need the budget allocation to be sort of approved and finalized to know that we would be able to accommodate a non-residential subclass of any kind. So that is why we wouldn't suggest starting any work until we know that that is something that will be built. The vacant residential, however, at the moment, there's no impediment to starting that we could begin right away.
So we are unable to have a subclass even if there's not a different charge to it?
No, that's not. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, you're correct. You can have a subclass. We just can't do anything about the existence of that subclass until we can tax it differently.
Okay, so I still think it's there is use in creating the use class this year, so that also gives you the 1 year runway in that properties that go on that subclass this year, or sorry, for 2027, that is also a full year before their charges are being incurred. So just wondering if the mover is open to that?
Yeah, that was my intention, is to try to move forward with whatever steps we can today, including what was outlined in the report, to be able to get the subclass itself up and going.
Sorry, I'm having a side chat with how can we actually make this happen?
Yeah.
If we had the subclass for non-residential, we still have that 1 year time limitation. So we would have to create the subclass and then do the evidentiary piece of at this condition date to that condition date, this has been unoccupied for a year. So we can establish the subclass and then begin that work, or we can do that work and then establish the subclass. I think it's much of a muchness.
Yeah, I think we want to establish the subclass.
Okay, just to the team, do you see any? I don't see any issues. But.
Okay, great. Well, maybe we can then just work with our clerks to update that wording, but I think it would be a friendly amendment to clarify that. And then just also wanted to confirm as well, sorry, lots of moving pieces. Just the other enabling piece not enabling, just in terms of the tax rebate process. So again, we have those amendments coming forward for C607B. Can this be incorporated with those?
I think I'm going to ask Anton to take that. Or Greg, sorry.
It could be. Like the C607B, we have that scheduled for review, scheduled for August 12th, I believe, to come back.
Okay.
It could be incorporated in that. There's nothing to forgive until we set the higher tax rate.
Absolutely, but just get her done, and then it's sort of built in and ready. So again, do you need direction for that?
No, I don't think we need direction. I think if the subclass, especially if the subclass was formally established by the time we get there, I'm not sure if there would be a problem with referencing a subclass that doesn't exist yet in that policy.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Then if you, oh yeah, the capital costs, the tax upgrades, I'm assuming that that's going to enable more than just this one subclass, yeah?
Yes, I mean, we have heard council for a number of years talk about wanting to move more into tax tools. This would be the piece that would enable that.
Great, so sort of the immediate term on this exact subclass is maybe not cost recovery, but again, that's a system-wide thing. We could be looking at lots of different initiatives that could close that gap. Okay, thank you. Just a couple other quick questions, I think, but that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan?
Yeah, just a quick clarification for myself. I'm just dealing with a property in Chappelle in one of my neighborhoods there that's not ever been inhabited. It's new building, but it's been sitting for 2 years. Would that be residential, non-residential? Is that based on the zoning?
If the property is designed with the intent
to live in?
For residential, it is residential, yes.
Okay.
And now that we're expanding the subclass to include that neighborhood, we would pick that up now.
Okay, cool. Thanks. That's all.
Abandoned during construction or
Yeah, absolutely.
uninhabited, uninhabitable, yes.
Right on. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Salvador?
Yeah, thank you. Apologies, was just working on some potential wording for that first part to maybe share with some colleagues for a friendly amendment. Okay, I just wanted to come back to one of the slides around all the tools that we have in our toolbox to make sure that we are taking a comprehensive approach. So when I think about things we're doing around infill infrastructure fund or some of the attainable housing programs, PGAs, like CRLs, grants, those are on the incentive side. Would we, I guess it's fair to say that we're trying to leverage all of those additional tools for these kinds of properties as well?
Yes, I mean, again, we sort of come at it from the assessment and taxation side, but we work very closely with our colleagues in UP and in community services. When council sort of gives us direction, we do put our minds to like what is the complete suite of potential tools we could offer. So as much as I can say, yes, we do.
Great, great. So this is sort of, I'm thinking like carrots and sticks, right? Taking that broad, comprehensive approach. This is an additional tool. I would say more on the flip side of the incentives, but a necessary one, I think. For the vacant conversation, I just want to clarify and maybe kind of publicly say this. So this wouldn't include things like greenfield development that is vacant, right? That is yet to be developed.
The way your motion has been worded, Councillor, we would be looking at properties within a redeveloping area, and the subtext I'm reading is you're looking for properties that are sitting, that could be developed, that don't seem to have any impediments to development, rather than looking at capturing broad swaths of developing land.
Right. Okay, great. So that's just want to make sure that was clear for everybody. And I'm so sorry, I think this might have just been asked, but I didn't catch it. The retroactive municipal tax relief that we've done on the residential side, that is being contemplated, or that would be?
Yes, I think we'll look at sort of the wording and suggest wording that is general enough that it's not exclusively for residential or non-residential. So when a subclass is created, we won't have to revise that policy.
Okay, great. I recall from previous work that I believe the federal government was doing some consultation on tools for vacant land. I think we participated in some of that. I don't know if there's any updates or information there. I just wanted to understand what our participation was, if we provided kind of feedback.
We did have conversations with our federal colleagues. I think what they realized quite quickly is that there isn't an easy way to define property without doing what your assessment and taxation branch does. And in the absence of that, they were relying on self-disclosure. And I don't believe that was a particularly effective tool for them.
Okay. So I think maybe underscores that doing it at this scale and this level with the expertise of taxation assessment is a little bit.
I could ask Anton to provide any additional color there, but we did counsel them as much as we felt was reasonable, and they appreciated what we were saying. The property taxation is very different to income taxation and requires a very different approach.
Right. Okay, great. And then I'm just going to put it out there to colleagues. I can't amend my own motion, but I think there's an opportunity just to have two separate parts for the first bullet that talks about establishing a non-res derelict tax subclass and associated bylaw, and then a second point for the unfunded package, just so that they're distinct and separate.
Since that was the intended point of the motion, I'm comfortable with just accepting that as an updated wording. That was the intended desire of the mover, so I think we don't need to make that as a separate amendment, so we can just reflect that change. Thank you.
So it's 4 parts?
So it'll now be 4 parts, I think, essentially. It'll be one, there'll be a new 2, and then 2 will be, anyway. Clerks will put it up on the board for us, and we can take a look. But just, we'll make that change as we're going. Councillor Elliott will be next.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one follow-up question. I don't know if this can be answered here or in private, I just want to get your perspective. I like this motion and the intent behind it. I'm just trying to look at it from an opposite perspective. From your experience and education on this, I potentially see challenges like at the Assessment Review Board, because I think when you look at derelict housing, you can define a derelict housing, you can show examples of derelict housing. How do you establish like a vacant aspect of being that issue at the board? Are you able to provide any context or a way to address that? But yet again, I don't want you to provide perspective which can provide information to a resident about how to address this against the city.
Yes, my CFO has pointed out that we shouldn't explain how to sue us. I would say that as we are moving down the exploration of what tax tools are possible and seeing what other municipalities in Alberta have attempted and what has and has not been successfully upheld through the boards and the courts, I feel reasonably confident that if we were to do this, we would find a pathway to success. I don't know if the implementation of this will have the desired effect, and as Councillor Palmer has pointed out, we are unlikely to be able to recover the costs of implementing this, but from a legal and defense perspective, without being a lawyer, I'm reasonably confident.
Maybe just to supplement Councillor Elliott, there's 2 pieces there. The one on the recovery, I would say there's a difference between a capital expenditure and then the ongoing potential revenue to be gaining from a new subclass, so that might compensate there. But I think you're absolutely identifying a risk, and we've identified that risk as well in our report. What it will ultimately come down to is how reasonable we are in our approach and our processes. And so the more we can build in rigor and reviewing and say, yeah, we've reviewed this property multiple times this year, these are our findings, it'll make our position that much stronger at the board. And if we start noticing that we're having challenges there, then that will be opportunities to adjust as we go. But there's, in some senses, no choice but to do our best and see where the ARB goes from there.
Thank you. That's my questions, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevenson.
So just on that, are we assuming that there's this conversation of unoccupied, but presumably it would need to be occupied for business purposes if it's a non-residential?
Yes, that would be part of our interpretation for sure.
Okay, awesome. And then just as the work is happening on vacant, are there opportunities? Oh, sorry, did you?
I was going to simply point out legally occupied would be part of the expectation. So if it's being occupied for illegal purposes, that would not be considered occupied from our perspective.
Okay, also a good distinction. When we're looking at vacant properties, are we able to consider things, for example, if a parcel waiting for development, let's say, is grassed and fenced, or it's available for community garden use, for example, are those ways that we can interpret, again, there are improvements on the land that would make them not be in the vacant category?
This is the gray space that we are considering and as we're sort of talking about a vacant definition or applying a narrowing of what, or widening of what vacant might mean. I think we would probably land somewhere where a fence isn't an improvement unless it's clearly designed to never be moved. So a temporary fence I wouldn't suggest would be considered a true improvement. So it might be a subject to subject distinction.
Yeah, well, and just thinking about how the definition can help align with other community outcomes that we might want to see. So is there an incentive for, again, community gardens, container cafes, things like that? But
I would say that when it comes to residential, council has enormous ability to define the class any way it desires. That is not the case with non-residential, which is why we're a lot more hesitant to give definitive, like what would and wouldn't work on the non-residential side.
Gotcha. And then just one small thread I want to better understand. So I appreciate that sort of limitation that our ceiling is tethered to our basement. But is our lowest residential category agriculture?
Farmland is actually its own class, and Greg will know this for sure because he helped do this back at the province. It is residential to non-residential, not to farmland, I think.
That's right. Lowest residential to highest non-residential.
Okay, because I thought I read something in the report about agriculture. But I cannot find it right now. Okay.
Yeah, so I know what you're talking about there. So there's two different rates that apply to agriculture. There's the assessment rates, right, the value of the property. The assessment rates for agriculture are set by the province, haven't been updated for many decades. 83, very, very low, not close to market value in a city like Edmonton. The tax rates are a different thing. So the 5-to-1 ratio is about the tax rates, not the assessment rates. So the taxes on farmland end up being very low because the assessments are very low. But the actual tax rate is the same as the residential rate.
So it's the same as the residential, but it is not the basement.
No, they're two different classes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. There's no one else on the board for questions. As Councillor Elliott did ask us already, that was just a legacy piece. The wording has been updated on the screen. Now's the time to click on if you wish to speak. Councillor Tang.
I just very quickly want to thank the mover for not just this motion today, but for a series of work that has a tangible impact in the community. I hear from community members that you want to see stronger measures. Edmonton is leading the way in this type of tools. This is strong measures, and I think this just adds another piece to it. I also hear the piece around, are we going to recover? To me, if we can improve a site, that also increases the developmental potential, adds value to surrounding neighborhood, and increase the potential for tax revenue, which I think that's worth trying. I know there's a ceiling for how much we can increase. That's some of those constraints is out of our control, but I'm certainly willing to try. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wish to thank the mover. I think this is something that's long overdue. I always can convert back to my previous career. I can say that the amount of concern and stress that hits the communities and citizens it's hard. From my days with EPS, seeing the stress, the crying, the angst that people have dealing with showing up with a derelict housing that's used for drugs, prostitution, human trafficking, the list is far and wide, and the impacts that has on the community is devastating. And I strongly support this, and I hope we can move this forward. I know that there's a cost associated to that, but sometimes what cost do you put on with protecting the community and improving the community as well? So I know that's got to be balanced, but at least I want to see it move forward, to see what you can provide on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parmar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to thank the mover for bringing this forward. I think it's very clear from the community and from others that that we need to move forward on this. I would say to administration, if there's a way that the timelines are actually very extended. So if there's a way for you to bring this forward to us, and if it needs required resources, I think you can see see clearly how important it is for us to move something like this forward. So I would just advised that in my comments. And just want to once again thank, it's not just the, I think we heard very clearly that the communities themselves suffer when we have one property like that, like the entry especially into your neighborhood, a front door to it. This is not what you want to see, and this is not what we want to see in Edmonton. And so I very much am happy to support this motion.
Thank you very much. Just for myself, wanted to start by, again, thanking the mover. I know, and I'll come back to some of the work the mover's done, but I think even Councillor Rutherford, I think last term, had a motion on vacant properties. Councillor Salvador's been really championing the derelict piece, and this whole motion is wonderful. This is something I campaigned on. This is something that every one of us have heard about in our wards and are ready to see action on. As has already been mentioned through the derelict residential piece, it's been incredibly successful. We were leading the way on this, and we need to keep going. So, to those who have derelict non-residential properties, to those who have vacant residential and vacant non-residential properties, we're coming for you. And I don't actually say that jokingly. It's time to get on with it. And we've given way too much leeway, and it's through no fault of it. It's just, this has been going on for so long. I mean, I think it was Christy who said 2005 on some sites. Gosh, I'm sure Mr. Bolstad, when he was on council, was dealing with some of this nonsense from some of these properties, and there were more limited tools then, and so we've shown that we know how to make this work. Administration's doing an incredible job. We need to give them the technology to finish the job here, but let's hope that in the meantime, those that have these properties, I say we're coming for you, but you don't have to worry about that if you just start maintaining your properties. So if you want to get ahead of this, you can go work with the business improvement areas. You can go work with the areas that are being impacted and actually start fixing the problem now, because I'd much rather them just fix the problem now than us start coming down hard. But if that's what we need to do, then let's keep coming down hard, because it was working on the derelict residential piece. And this is important work, because when these properties are allowed to exist in this state, it's bringing down communities, it's bringing down neighborhoods. We know the impact it has. So it's time. Let's get it moving. That's why I didn't have any questions. I'm not just trying to do it to speed up the meeting. We're long overdue. We've all been talking about it. We know the success. Time to move to the next step. Let's get it going. Thank you to administration, and again to Councillor Salvador, who's been a very, very vocal champion on this over the last number of years. It's time for the next steps of this work. So excited to support it. Councillor Jans.
Yeah, very quickly, just to say, I wanted to tie this back to our pillar of affordability, that when all of us are paying less in insurance costs, when all of us benefit from having fewer fires in our community, when all of us benefit from cleaner, more well-kept, more beautified communities, we all see greater return on investment in our properties, in our community. And I'm reading a list of concerns here from a local insurance company, and it just reminds me, the more we can help all of us keep our premiums down, this will help with affordability. So thank you again to the mover for keep kicking this forward, and full support.
Thank you. All right, look at that. Councillor Stevenson just supports it. She pulled her name off the list because she's supportive. Councillor Salvador to close.
Yeah, thank you. There's so much I could say, so I'm going to just stick to some of the notes that I have so I don't go way over my time. But just want to thank all the speakers who came out today, and all the community members and businesses and organizations who've been pushing for this for years. We've heard very, very clearly from Edmontonians across the board that derelict and vacant properties are dragging down the revitalization work that we've all been pushing for years. Again, these sites increase fire risk, they create safety hazards, and importantly, they consume a disproportionate share of city resources. They hurt the businesses around them, they hurt the residents around them, and the public shouldn't be bearing the cost of that neglect. We already know that taxation tools can be quite powerful at affecting and prompting change in our communities. And I want to just come back to even one of the examples we heard today. The folks at the aviary is a really good example of what's at stake. A business that has been trying really, really hard and succeeding to add vibrancy, to add life, to revitalize a part of our community, being directly affected and jeopardized by a building next door. that has been neglected and has been derelict for far too long. You know, that's not acceptable for anyone. These types of properties reduce the developability of neighboring sites, and I think overall are counter to the objective of building a more compact and sustainable city. The report that we had in front of us today confirms that these tools can be really effective. We've seen how effective the approach has been on the residential side, and while there's more complexity and more nuance that has to be worked through on the non-resident vacant side, I'm really excited about extending this work to commercial properties and looking at how we can take further steps on vacant sites. Just to speak to our administration as well, I think you should be incredibly proud of the work that's been done to date. On the residential side, I never imagined that I would be so passionate and excited about exploring taxation tools, but turns out I am. And they can be such an important lever for supporting health and well-being in our communities. So it's been great to see that work happening in real time. And just a real believer in our taxation and assessment departments and their ability to innovate and lead in these spaces. Actually, just yesterday, I was on the phone or over email with some folks in Regina, counselors who are watching this work very closely and learning from what Edmonton has been doing in this space. And just to touch on the second piece around vacant properties in particular, these are sites that could be adding so much to our neighborhoods. They create gaps in the urban fabric. They also attract things like illegal dumping, generate bylaw complaints, and they do impose real costs on city resources. And sometimes they've been doing that for decades. What's been missing on that side, I think, has been financial incentive for disengaged owners to act. And to the mayor's point, I really hope this conversation makes it clear that we are serious about taking action. And yeah, finally, just looping back to this community-driven work, I think there are so many leaders and advocates who've been pushing on this for years, and it's really your dedication and your care for your neighborhoods that has elevated this conversation to this table, that has helped us push it along. So without your advocacy, we would not be here. So I'm really excited to continue working alongside all of you to make our neighborhoods the best possible places they can be. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Please vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. That is carried 5-0. Thank you very much. So those items 7.1 and 7.2 have been dealt with. We're going to be moving to 7.3, which is the CRL update. We do have 4 folks who are registered to speak, and then 7.5. Realistically, I don't think we finish 7.5, but we can certainly shoot to get through 7.3 and at least hear through the speakers as 7.5 and ask as many questions as possible. It has to go to council either way, so there's a possibility of just requisitioning it. Depending on the timeliness, we could send it back to a future committee meeting, but we'll play it a little by ear to my committee colleagues, and we'll take a look at both agendas for council and the next committee to find the right place if we can't finish, but we'll do our best. As administration is getting settled for 7.3, I'm going to turn the chair over to Councillor Tang, our vice chair, as I have to step away to a chamber event to welcome the Consul General from China. So I'll be back probably right after the break, or give or take. So I'll do my best. I'll listen in at least in between now and my time walking to that event. So Councillor Tang, the floor is yours, or the chair is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone seated. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Those are the wrong ones. Just 1 second. Thank you. My name is Brett Latchford, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Emerging Economy. Today, administration is presenting our annual update on the performance of the city's three Community Revitalization Levy Areas, or CRLs. CRLs are an important tool for investing in areas needing revitalization and attracting growth to select nodes and corridors in accordance with the city plan. Slide, please. Administration brings a CRL update report to Council in the spring of each year. It provides progress reports on CRL-funded projects, as well as an updated financial reporting and projections for each CRL. As this is the first annual report presented to this Council, our presentation will include a brief overview of how CRLs work and how they can and cannot be used. We will then share highlights with the financial updates. Slide, please. A CRL is a financing tool available to municipalities in the Municipal Governments Act. These funds are used to redevelop areas that are not developing to their full potential and continue to face barriers in attracting new investment. There are currently 6 CRLs in Alberta, of which 3 are in Edmonton. Within a CRL area, the city identifies a suite of catalyst projects, which are strategic public investments intended to attract private redevelopment and remove barriers to investment. These catalyst projects can take many forms depending on what's included in the CRL plan. It could be new parks or streetscape improvements, drainage infrastructure upgrades, investment in cultural facilities, development incentives, and more. Along with a long-term lens, we also support opportunities in the short term. We work closely with the development community to update regulations, support infrastructure upgrades, and provide public realm improvements that make new development more appealing. As private development occurs, the resulting uplift in property tax is used to repay the initial investment. Slide 4, please. This slide shows a simplified model of the life of a CRL. Throughout the life of the CRL, property taxes are paid on the baseline assessment, and they continue to go to general revenues. The uplift in property taxes is collected by the CRL for a 20-year period, although this can be extended. To fund the upfront investment in catalyst projects, the city generally borrows. As private development happens and tax uplift is realized, that debt is repaid. At the end of the CRL, all the property taxes will go into the general municipal revenues, and the education portion will return to the province. Slide 5, please. The investment in catalyst projects begins immediately at the start of the CRL, while private development may take some time to occur. This results in a situation where the debt repayment expenses exceed CRL revenue on an annual basis. The city has managed this annual shortfall by transferring the annual balance from each CRL to a CRL reserve. Each CRL has its own reserve, and all 3 of them currently have negative balances. Over time, as CRL revenues increase and exceed annual expenses, these reserve deficits are repaid. For each of the CRLs, we include a projection on when these deficits will peak, what the maximum reserve deficit is projected to be, and when it is expected to be repaid. Slide, please. In many ways, CRL projects are similar to any other project the city undertakes. They follow the same project development and delivery model and the same budget process. Each CRL project needs council budget approval through our capital or operating budgets. Administration monitors the financial performance of each CRL, which in turn influences the scale of investment that the administration will propose for budget consideration. Administration is required to provide an annual report to the provincial government, and we also provide an update to council once a year in the spring. Slide, please. It's important to understand that the use of CRL funds is constrained. CRL funds can only be used towards projects listed in a CRL plan and located within the CRL area. These projects should address barriers to redevelopment or otherwise encourage investment. And except for specific cases, CRL projects must be capital spending that results in the creation of a municipally owned asset. That means that CRLs can't be used for routine maintenance, repair, or operational costs. Slide, please. At the end of a CRL, the provincial and municipal property taxes return to general revenues of the province and city, respectively. Depending on the financial performance of the CRL, there may be ongoing debt payments or a negative reserve balance at the close of the CRL. If this occurs, the ongoing municipal tax revenues collected in the area would be required to service that ongoing debt and or repay the reserve deficit balance. In effect, it would delay the return of the municipal uplift only to general revenues. Slide, please. As noted, there are 3 CRLs in Edmonton: the Capital City Downtown CRL, the Quarters Downtown CRL, and the Belvedere CRL. Each of these CRLs has a different timeline and was developed in response to unique circumstances in each area. Of note, the Belvedere and Downtown CRLs do not align with the city's neighborhood boundaries. In the case of the downtown, only about half the land area of the downtown neighborhood is included in the downtown CRL, as well as small portions of the Macaulay and Central McDougall neighborhoods. Slide, please. Our annual financial update starts with the downtown CRL. In 2025, the downtown CRL was extended by 10 years, so that this will now be in effect until 2044. The extension added several new catalyst projects, including the event park, the Village at Ice District infrastructure, the Attainable Housing Program, and the Windspear expansion. Last year's annual report was for the original 20-year CRL length. Usually we show a comparison between last year's annual update and this year's, but here we are comparing to the CRL plan. The medium scenario has adjusted downward modestly since a year ago, primarily due to reduced valuation assumptions for new rental buildings, the market value outlook for retail properties. Given the extension, all three scenarios currently project a surplus at the end of the CRL in 2044. These projections already include funding for the Windspear expansion and the Attainable Housing Program. While this suggests there is substantial capacity over the remaining life of the CRL, I remind Council that the new revenue from the CRL extension doesn't materialize until after 2035. Thus, while in the long term there is capacity, in the short term we need to manage annual cash flow and the reserve deficit situation. The graph on the slide shows the projected reserve balance over the remaining life of the CRL based on the medium scenario. The blue line represents the projection including only projects with approved budgets. This includes the Windspear expansion and attainable housing. In this scenario, there would be a reserve balance surplus of $412 million by 2044. Although in reality the city would not build up such surplus, the CRL would end early. The blue line represents the projected reserve balance if all unfunded projects in the CRL plan are fully funded. In this scenario, the reserve deficit is deeper and persists for a longer period, and there would be a deficit at the end of the CRL. Slide, please. The quarter's projection has been revised downward by $18 million to $92.8 million. This is due to a worsened outlook across almost all inputs, from reduced expectations for future development to reductions in the values of existing land and rental properties. As a result, we continue to project a shortfall at the end of this CRL in 2031. Ongoing municipal taxes collected in this area would cover the shortfall in 10 years. Next slide, please. The projection for Belvedere has increased by $5.2 million since last year. This is primarily due to the new development activity at the Station Point area. When combined with corrections to the debt accounting, the Belvedere CRL is now projecting a small surplus at the end of the CRL in 2032. Slide, please. Thank you, and we will hear from speakers.
Thank you very much. We'll go to our public speakers now. I think you all saw the process, so you're welcome to come up one at a time. We'll start with Ijaz, Shiraz, Alibi, Wolf. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, thank you for having me so much. Sorry, where's everybody else? I thought I'd be speaking to the whole council.
So this is a committee, and committee is a portion of council. And at committee, we kind of get into a lot of issues in depth. We hear from members of the public, which we don't typically have at council meetings. And then eventually this will move up to council on April 17th and 18th.
Gotcha. Okay. My first time doing it, thank you.
No worries.
My name is Ijaz Shrazali by Wolf. I'm here on behalf of and representing Civic Labs, or a nonprofit organization with a new venue called Club 97 under our wings right now in the Quarters District. I'm here mostly to talk about the Quarters. I understand there's some other CRLs in different areas, but that's the main topic I'm here to talk about today. I'm also a local artist. I'm born and raised in Edmonton, primarily hip-hop artist. I have a short film that got presented at Edmonton International Film Festival. Not trying to flex, just showing you that I'm from here and I'm about it, you know. Because I can speak, I don't think it's legalese, but whatever it is, plain language, politicianese, right? I can speak it, but I'm just here to get real today. Because that's what I'm good at doing. So respectfully, I don't think that either the committee or the council or forgive me if I get the department name wrong, but let's say the governmental representatives on the matter truly know what we have going on right now and what we can do with that space. And I think sometimes speaking in this political language gets in the way of that. So I just want to be very direct about what I see and directly in front of me, plus the vision to it all. We have the potential to have an arts district in Edmonton. Like, we don't have that. What we do have is an insane plethora of incredibly talented, I'll say it, I'm not even talking about me, world-class artists, like people that are just above and beyond. Some that came here later, some that are born and raised, but it's amazed me since I was a kid. I've always known it because I've been hanging around artists since I was young. I'm 32 now. But what we don't have is a place for everybody to get together and thrive. It's all scattered, you know, it's tough to get to different venues. The train station built at the quarters right now is incredibly, like, that's super, super solid start to all of this. But I understand that there's a lot of working class people in Edmonton, and a lot of communities need to get developed specifically. You know, each area having their own strip mall and whatnot, but most likely that's not going to be what draws people from France to come visit. There might be some world-class bakery in Ambleside or something that draws people from France to come visit. There very well might be, and that'd be great. I lived in Tokyo for a year, and as much as there are the main downtown popular areas, there's absolutely sub areas that still draw like tourists and whatnot, right? But downtown is where the life is. It's where it all starts, and you go out from there. And you know, we have the potential to have our city be a place that people come to, like the way that they go to Montreal. Montreal has a place called the Quarters that people from around Canada and internationally go to partake in the arts, whether they're watching, whether they are an artist themselves. Like, I'm sure y'all know NPR Tiny Desk concerts. Like, we have the ability, we have a team here with brilliant minds, technology, and the vision to set up a means for Tiny Desk level quality productions that can be used for both artists that are coming from international or for local artists to represent themselves. And we have an initiative in our hearts to have it set up so they come here, they do a set, they get paid by whatever means we have set up, and they just get that on the house. They get this recording on the house. I've been screwed over before, and I was promised recordings like that and I never got them. It sucks. But we have a means to provide that level of quality. It's the future. Like, it's really, you know, and that's just one part of the puzzle. That's just talking about Club 97 in general. But we, as a team, we have the keys. We have the vision. We have truly brilliant minds that have done a lot of research. What we don't have is the investment. But like, what I wanted to come here to say, my punchline is, leave it to us. Truly, leave it to us. I can't help with the Belvedere CRL and the other one. I have no idea about it, really. I mean, I was born in the north, or not born. I lived in Clairview and all that, but leave it to us. Ask us more. We'd love to chat, but seriously, like, we can turn this whole thing upside down and actually like revitalize Edmonton from the core, moving outwards. And I think that would be the best for our economy, for international economy, artist well-being, and just general happiness.
Thank you so much. And also, I'll just know, even though there's a few of us in the room, we also have a number of councillors and mayor participating online, including Councillor Wright, Councillor Paquette, and Mayor Mack. Awesome. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I will invite.
I got to get back to my delivery job.
Bye. Patrick Lalonde.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Patrick Lalonde, and I'm speaking today on behalf of myself and my business partner, Colin Campbell, who's currently in transit to Hamilton for the Juno Awards. He's there meeting artists, promoters, and development partners from across Canada to build relationships that can bring talent, programming, and investment back to Edmonton, and specifically back to the Quarters. My own perspective is informed by active venue and cultural work in the district. Colin's perspective is shaped not only by cultural development, but also by close involvement with property stewardship and redevelopment in the area, including work connected to Five Oaks. Five Oaks describes itself as an Edmonton-based development firm focused on mixed-use commercial and residential properties with a strong emphasis on adaptive reuse and long-term building stewardship. It has projects in and around the Quarters, including the Hive, Shockter Building, and the Salvation Army. I'm here because today's CRL updates points to a larger issue. If the Quarters is not performing as strongly as once hoped, then the response cannot be simply note the shortfall and move on. The real question is, what actually creates growth, confidence, and long-term tax uplift in a district like this? The evidence is not complicated. Thriving arts districts are not built by branding alone, and they are not built by infrastructure alone. They work when the arts, culture are tied to housing, small businesses, public space, transportation, and long-term sector partnership. The city's own downtown strategy points in the same direction. Economic growth, residential growth, vibrancy growth, and business growth have to reinforce one another if downtown districts are going to succeed. The Quarters already has many of those ingredients. The city describes itself as 40-hectare district immediately east of downtown, organized around the armature served by the Valley Line, and supported by major infrastructure investment, adaptive reuse, new public spaces, and art-focused rehabilitation projects. The city also says that over $100 million in Quarters infrastructure and community improvements has been allocated from the CRL, contributing to more than $550 million in private and public development in the area. So this is not a potential problem, it is an alignment problem. The city says it wants stronger growth and more momentum in the Quarters. At the same time, the downtown vibrancy strategy says its actions generally apply within the downtown business improvement area boundary, while the Quarters remains a district but directly adjacent district east of 97th Street. When the city needs stronger activation in a district, but the practical tools and boundaries and pathways do not fully line up with the district, momentum slows. So that's also in relation to the vibrancy grant that just came out. We lie outside the boundary on the other side of the street, and it's like we're bringing vibrancy to the city. So this is the contradiction. And it matters because districts like this do not revive through planning documents alone. They revive when public policy, private investment, cultural activity, and building level opportunities start pulling in the same direction. They revive when serious local proposals can find a clear pathway into the city's implementation system instead of getting stuck between policy language and delivery reality. So my request today is straightforward. First, treat the Quarters as a district that requires active implementation, not just monitoring. Second, create a clear pathway for stakeholders who are already assembling viable ideas in the district, whether around housing, cultural space, commercial tenancy, or mixed-use redevelopment, to engage administration early and align with the city's objectives. Third, review whether current boundaries, eligibility rules, and delivery tools are helping activate in the Quarters or quietly slowing it down. And finally, recognize that if the city expects stronger tax uplift from the Quarters, then it has to fully align its tools with the people, properties, and partnerships that are actually capable of creating that uplift on the ground. The Quarters will not thrive because it is named in a plan. It will thrive when Edmonton treats arts, culture, small businesses, adaptive reuse, and mixed-use development as part of one district building strategy. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry, and did you say you were also speaking for Colin, too?
So Colin is on a plane.
Okay.
He just texted me, and he can speak.
He can?
This was just in case
Okay.
he couldn't speak.
No
So,
problem.
yeah.
Okay, I'll call him when the time comes to it. Okay, next we'll have Amin Samuel. Please go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, committee members. Good afternoon, everybody in the room. I hope you guys are having a good day and enjoying the weather so far. My name is Amin M. Samuel. I am from ETA 360 Studios Incorporated, and I'm speaking today on item 7.3, and I'll keep this focused. I understand that Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation is a major life science organization working to grow the biotech sector, and I want to be clear, I support science and innovation in Edmonton in every way. I'm from London, Ontario, just so you guys know. I just moved here 2.5 years ago. I love this town, it's awesome. But knowing that, I found out that we already have a place for the science. They already have a science sector, and this is the arts sector, and they have the ICE district over there. The Edmonton Research Park was specifically built for biotech pharmaceutical development and advanced research. It has the infrastructure, the zoning, and the environment designed for that industry. So the question is not whether biotech belongs in Edmonton, because it does. The question is, does it belong here in the Arts District? This area near the Ice District has already seen major public investment become a cultural and entertainment hub. It's meant for the arts, music, film, and community connection. Life sciences is not arts. At the same time, I want to highlight that Savita, the work at Savita has been doing in this area. In April 2024, there was a federal government housing announcement at O'Damon Village, which is where I reside right now, where leaders discussed investments and affordable housing and community support projects, and Savita's slogan is, "It starts with a home." This emphasizes the purpose of their work is to create safe, accessible housing for people who need it most. Placing a pharmaceutical-focused business in this location would go against that mission. I also want to reference comments made during item 7.2. Both Christy Morin and Philip Munns emphasized that they need to prioritize arts and culture in the downtown spaces, noting how important creative hubs are for the community vibrancy, connection, and long-term growth. Their points reinforce that this district should remain focused on arts and culture, not industrial, or pharmaceutical development. I know the council may raise questions about financial benefits, tax revenue, residential versus commercial, and how this development might help the city in the short term. But that kind of thinking is eating the seed. It focuses on immediate gain while ignoring the long-term value of our community and our youth. Selling these properties or prioritizing short-term financial returns without considering the needs of artists, families, and children is pushing an agenda, not building a sustainable city. The true measure of value is how these spaces create opportunities for people to grow, create, and learn. Arts, music, and cultural development attract talent, tourism, and long-term investment, not just dollars on paper today. If the city is offering land at below market value, I want to ask a simple question. Was that same opportunity made available for people like me and others in the community who are actively building businesses and creating impact? Because if I had access to a dollar lease or discounted land opportunity, I would absolutely use it to build something meaningful for the city. I'm a musician and a creative who works with established names in the music industry and film industry, and what I do is bring people together and build platforms that create opportunity and unity and growth for the community. Today I'm asking the council to consider a few key actions to ensure this district fulfills its purpose. And before I let you know that, I would like to, 43 seconds, good. I'd like to let you know some of the artists that I work with. Ray Seville, he's a person who worked with Janet Jackson's producers. Anthony Grant, he is a person who's in Polar on Netflix and he makes movies. Electric Panda, they work with Vin Diesel and those sort of artists. And these are the artists that I am planning on bringing down. I was just talking to them today because I'd seen, as soon as I turn away, my voice goes away, because they have brought in things into the community. So I'm gonna skip past really quick. And the first thing I would like to ask is for the council to provide opportunities for people like me to access land, especially when it has been leased for such a low price, so we can contribute to the growth of the arts and culture. 2, support the cleanup and transformation of this area.
I'm gonna have to stop you there, but we'll ask you some questions and
Okay.
we'll let you finish. How's that?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Finally, Colin, is Colin online? Let's see.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thanks, Mayor and Council, for letting me speak today. I apologize in advance if my connection drops. I'm currently in transit and speaking mid-flight. I want to begin by referencing in June 2025, during the downtown CRL extension, I formally raised the opportunity to reimagine and significantly invest quarters to the CRL. At the time, I was questioned by former Councillor Cartmel on why the quarters continues to be excluded from key downtown funding mechanisms, including with the CRL. the Downtown Action Plan and broader public infrastructure investments? And that question still stands today. Second, I asked directly to Council, Urban Planning, and other departments, why has there been no clear explanation as to why the Boyle Street and Macaulay Area Redevelopment Plan, which was formally repealed by Bylaw 24102 in October 24, and not been transparently connected to current CRL funding decisions and implementation in the quarters. This lack of clarity is not just concerning as it reflects a broader breakdown in coordination. It should not fall to a private citizen to have to inform provincial CRL counterparts about gaps in employment on a file of this scale. And I can verify that this has occurred because I was the one who did it. And based on these conversations, I cannot support additional city-led projects in the quarters until there's meaningful coordination between council, administration, the province, and the private sector. To be clear, this is not a lack of willingness to invest, it is a lack of confidence in the current process that's taking place. I sit on a plane here today as both a property manager for 5 Oaks and an operator on the ground doing the work, activating space, building community, and contributing to the conditions for tax uplift and cultural growth that the CRL depends on. And we are not alone. I've now referenced the Heart of the City report, which was chaired by Joe Schochter back in 1984, and he states this: the goal of revitalizing downtown Edmonton is shared by many individuals, groups, and associations. In all our undertakings, success rests on the strong spirit of cooperation evident in the joint efforts of public and private organization. Council, the quarters is not a secondary file. It is one of Edmonton's most significant opportunities to build a true arts, business, and technology district with housing and a strong community, but it requires meaningful investment moving forward. But it requires alignment, and it requires transparency, and it requires action. I'm available for questions and follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and safe travels. For now, we're gonna go to questions to speakers. Start with Councillor Partmar.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Okay, so I had a question in regard, maybe I'll ask Amin, maybe I'll ask you. Some of the for the biotech companies, they've actually approached us and asked for, these types of leases, whether it be a not-for-profit lease or a biotech lease. Have you had an opportunity to work with somebody in administration to be able to do those sorts of things? And is that what you're asking us today?
Yes, I just moved here in 2023. For my slogan for ET 360 is "It's not a job, it's a lifestyle." So I just moved here. I moved into Zavita. They changed it from Melcor Place to a Damon, and my name's in the word, Amin. And I see what's going on in the community, and it's very upsetting seeing, sorry if I cry. It's very upsetting seeing people die every day. You just meet somebody and then they're dead. And so going through the community, and it's very beautiful. Looking out through my window, I can see downtown. I see this place. I see the lights turn, and then I see the garbage, and I see the homeless people and the encampments, and there was an encampment over there, and an encampment over there, and now they're closed, and I'm seeing stuff happening, and the same thing was happening in London, Ontario, where I'm from, and downtown used to be hustling and bustling. Everybody could walk around. Now it's owned by a big company like that, and they closed up all the buildings. They jacked up the prices of rent, so it made it really hard for the community, and it was just, they were just focused right there on the money. And so now it's dying, and I'm seeing it. And now that I'm here, and it's like deja vu, watching the whole thing over again. And so I'm like the mayor said, we're coming, and I'm here now. I came from the underground. I'm coming up. I'm here now. I want to make a difference. So if I have to call on my friends, which I have been calling on my friends, to come down and do a difference, put on some events here to be able to bring revenue to the money, or revenue to the town, to the city, so that we don't eat the seed. Because if you eat the seed right now, then we can't plant anything to grow for our future. And I was just thinking of things, because I just found out about this the other day, and I was like, okay, I didn't know that this was going on. So then just looking at it and found out what they wanted to put here, and I'm thinking, what about the children? What about the pollution? What about us? Like, I just moved here, and I myself personally have been helping security, helping the people in my community, giving them food that I can do, and then you're going to put up a big drug place, and we're trying to get rid of that in our community, because I don't want to see that. I don't think anybody in our community wants to see that, so it will totally destroy the whole, like, it will go against what, like, Randy Boiseno just came down. I do film, I do radio and television broadcasting. I learned in Manitoba. My friends are in film, my friends are in music. And I just videotaped them. And we just got, I think it was 50, I'd have to watch the videotape, 50 million or something to like make the community well. And then now they're gonna do that. And there's so many amazing artists, amazing people that I've met, where it's like, if we all came together as a community, we
Yeah.
can totally make a difference.
Yeah, well, welcome to Edmonton, and thank you for sharing that. I wanted to just let you know that City Council actually last month just defined four priorities. And one of them is actually around economic development, and arts, culture, and sports as an economic tourism driver is this council, you know, one of our main priorities in for this next 4-year term. Okay. And so just advise you to, you know, reach out to your councilor, which is Councilor Stevenson over here.
I'm gonna get your information
And be able to really connect around there, and I really thank you that. Did you want to, you had like points that you were cut off. Did you want to read them out? You've got 58 seconds.
Okay, sorry. Yes, my points. I put them away. Okay, my points were, what did I get to? I got to 1, provide opportunities for people like me, land, low prices. 2, support cleanup and transformation of this area where it looks, because it's so beautiful, and I'll clean up stuff. But support cleanup and transformation of the area, turning it into a world-class destination for artists and performers, because I have a bunch of people that are coming from different places to perform. Like I said, I'm going to try like Boys to Men and that sort of stuff, Cat Williams. Another thing, number 4 is keep the arts district focused on arts and not converted into science or industrial sector, because there's already one dedicated to the dedicated science zone park, Edmonton Research Park. I don't know where that is yet. And preserve spaces for our children to create, grow, and learn in a safe and inspiring environments. They used to have
Thank you
collab.
very much. I'm out of time, but
Sorry.
thank you. Somebody else
Thank
may ask
you.
you a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Question for admin. I've got about. Oh no.
Sorry, to admin or amen?
Oh no, sorry, for administration.
Okay, so we'll come back to questions to admin after questions to speakers.
If I may, then.
Sure.
Can you finish what you were stating, my friend? We'll try to go for the 3rd round. Yes, please. Yeah.
I thought it was admin. Sorry. Oh,
No.
gosh. Okay. Did you call me or did you say admin?
Please.
Okay. The last, sorry, the last thing I had mentioned is just for like the community, the children in our area. I see them, and it's, yeah, if we have places to play, they just built a park around there in that area. They have this beautiful red, I don't know what you would call it, gazebo. It is so beautiful. And putting that right in the middle of quarters, right in the middle of quarters, would destroy the whole thing, and it's not art sector. So why don't we keep it art, put it for the kids to be able to grow up and learn, because CoLab is closed now. When I was first here, it was open. Now it's closed, so I was actually going to go look at the CoLab place. It's beside iHuman, I think. I've even gone into iHuman, and I've offered my services, saying that I would help the people if they want photo shoots or anything, so that I could connect them with some of the artists that I know. And I basically just want to bring the people I know from up here, and then offer opportunities for people who are trying to get out there into trying to join them. So I was working on a ETA 360 Creative Conference, been working on it for a while, going around. I went to West Edmonton Mall, did some footwork for the past 2 years, like hiding in my little dungeon or cave or whatever you want to call it, and just getting contact information. I just went to the library the other day to find out about the renting of the spaces, and then I know it's taking a while, but like finding out about this and finding the right people to connect with to be able to make this happen. And now I'm hearing this, and I'm glad I found out about it, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to say anything. But I plan on bringing a whole bunch of people down to be able to bring something positive to Edmonton. So if I called Ray Seville right now, he could tell you that he has access to Cat Williams and Boys to Men, and he worked with Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam. I could call, I don't know if you've heard of Red Man or Method Man, so I just linked up with their producer. So all these people I plan on bringing to town, and I need to find the right people to work with to make it happen.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Apologize, everybody. I'm doing such a bad job chairing. It's 3:36, so we'll take a 15-minute break. For the speakers who just spoke, we do have one more counselor who's on the board to ask you questions, so I hope you don't go anywhere. But if you have to, it's up to you. But just we'll come back and finish that round of questions. So we'll come back at 3:50. In the room, we have Councillor Salvador, Councillor Palmer, myself from the committee, and Councillor Stevenson. And I think online we have a few others. Mayor Knack is online.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Councillor Morgan.
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Councillor Elliott, who I think is coming down as we speak. I understand that Councillor Stevenson asked her questions during the break to the speaker, so you no longer have questions. And then maybe I'll just say, I think, there was a few different threads just to the speakers. I think the gist I'm hearing from you is that you want to see the quarters be a thriving arts district and to really engage with the community and the businesses that are there, the groups that are there who have ideas to activate the quarters. That's the gist that I'm getting. Yes? Okay, awesome, thank you. No, all good, all good. We don't need to have question, but I just wanted to get that main idea. So now we're gonna go to questions to administration. Councillor Salvador.
Thank you. Just a few questions. I just wanted to make sure I understood kind of the scope of some of the student housing that I believe was just recently announced, and that does touch the quarters, correct?
It does. There's one project from Five Oaks in the quarters. Yeah.
Okay, and is that a big project? How many units?
It's a 160 unit project, 150 are student units.
Okay, and is that, I guess, one of the larger scale buildings that we've seen? I would say so.
Yeah, it's not as significant as the Hat or the hotel, but it's pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting to see that. The other question I had, and hopefully there's someone who could answer this, it was around the temporary parking permit program that council advanced a few years ago. I know a number of those parcels were in the quarters, and I'm just wondering, as that process unfolds and as people apply for those temporary permits, will there be a reassessment of those parcels, and how does that affect potential CRL revenue? And is that factored in?
We'll have to check with assessment and get back with you.
Sure. Is there anyone who can just speak to where we're at with that program? I believe it was 18 months that they had.
Councillor Salvador, don't have the details at our fingertips. Give us a moment.
Sure. I'll come back for that then.
Okay, great. Maybe I will take a round. So I guess just to follow up on a few things that I heard from the speakers. Like, if I think of Chinatown, there's a Chinatown strategy. If I think about downtown, we have downtown action plan. When I think about quarters, we have
the Chinatown Vibrancy Fund, which covers South Chinatown, which is also known as the quarters. And so some of the strategy does touch on that. Much of the cultural and heritage district of Chinatown is in South Chinatown. So the Chinatown strategy does cover that. The downtown...
but that only overlaps with portion of the quarter.
With a portion of the quarters,
right,
yes.
Okay.
And the downtown BIA area does overlap some of that area as well.
Again, I think the overlap is quite small with quarters, correct?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I know we have a few different boundaries that sometimes can make it really confusing when people do look for project funding and whatnot. I mean, I guess for the rest of quarters, the parts that don't overlap with any of the things that you just mentioned, like what administrative resource is there to support the activation of different opportunities?
Well, there's the neighborhood resource coordinators for the areas, and then there's just the community leagues that cover the boundary on the edges, but there isn't a dedicated city resource like there is for downtown or Chinatown to that section.
I think Councillor Tang, as part of Council's new priorities and talking about leveraging arts, culture, and sports, it's something we are looking at under the refresh downtown action plan. So we don't have answers in that space today, but it is something that we are working on and how we do that in areas across the city.
Yeah, I guess that just certainly something to think about. Often when we talk about downtown, people think of some of the tallest high-rises in the core, but it really, there are footprints a little bit broader than that. And while we invest in the physical infrastructure, but it doesn't feel like Quarters had the same kind of tools compared to some of the other neighborhoods where you have the physical infrastructure, but not necessarily the operational or kind of programming equivalent.
The Quarters didn't come with a vibrancy fund like downtown
Correct,
and
yeah.
Chinatown did. That is correct.
Yeah, okay, and so that's something you're saying that in terms of the refresh downtown action plan, in terms of reviewing some of these initiatives through our priorities, this might be some of the consideration you'll have.
Yeah, I think as we take a look at the council priority around leveraging arts, culture, and sport, that's something we're specifically going to explore. And so this feedback is really important when we get into the development of those types of activities.
So you don't need any direction for that. You'll just be part of the work. Okay.
That's correct.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is housing. So the student housing initiative is a pretty significant one. That's a lot of units. I made the motion earlier in March for looking at housing incentive as part of using CRL for the Quarters specifically, because I think I did hear speakers talk about housing. So I know that right now we're in this deficit projection, and something like that could potentially put us deeper. But I also feel like housing has probably the most guarantee for increasing assessment value. So I just want to, that's a good thing to continue to pursue as an incentive, right?
I think we are looking, it is something that we've seen in the downtown that has worked really well. We're exploring that for the Quarters as well, based on the emotion that was received. We also received direction, was it 2 years ago, Brett? A year ago?
Last year, yeah.
Last year, when we were here last year for the update, to come back in 2 years with a plan for things we could be doing to further support the Quarters. So we've got a couple of things underway, recognizing where we are with the CRL financial tool, and that there is still more work to be done.
And then just in terms of stakeholders, because if I think about Chinatown, downtown, there are some very clear players that you're always engaging with. But when it comes to the Quarters, beyond the community leagues, like who are the clear, are you engaging with some of the groups that came forward today? Are there other, like I'm thinking CoLab, yes, are there others?
Yeah, so we engage with CoLab, iHuman, OCC1. We also talk to the landowners in the area on a regular basis.
Yeah, but they're more like individual, I guess they're.
They are more individual, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so anyways, I appreciate all the work that's going on, and hopefully that gives some of the members of the public a bit of clarity that there's a lot of efforts, just not necessarily materializing anything immediate. But hopefully you'll engage with some of these folks after this meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I know you indicated that the Quarters CRL is projected to have I think a deficit of about, shortfall, I should say, of about 63 million. And that expires, I think you said in 2031. Do we have a plan B if, the development doesn't keep up or this takes off? Are we looked at, because I always find if we reset plans, we should have also a backup plan type of thing.
Yeah, so we do 3 scenarios, and they're detailed in the report. We do a low, medium, and high scenario. And so the projections that were presented on this slide deck were the medium scenario. So in the event that stuff comes in hotter or we get more development than we expect, we would tend towards the high scenario. And then we also have the low scenario. So we do that as a stress test, as a range. It's very hard to predict the future, but that's sort of what we do. We do a sensitivity analysis on 3 possible scenarios. And then the middle one is where we try to base our best guess.
And I guess one of the options is try to get an extension. And I think what I'm trying to learn, if we ever get an extension, do we have to go through the GOA for the extension? Is that correct?
We do, yeah.
And I don't know if this ever happened, but has the GOA ever said no? And if they were to say no, what then, I guess? Or we have never crossed that.
As much as I'm aware, there's been 2 successful applications for extensions, one in Calgary and one here. I don't know of anybody that's applied and said no, but that might not get published. So I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think our best recommendation would be to explore with the province what's feasible, and then come back with what would be an appropriate approach for the city to look at.
Okay, and it looks like Belvedere is performing relatively well. Have I don't know if we can do this or not, but if we learned anything from the Belvedere aspect that we could apply to the quarters, anything, do we look at that aspect too, about what's working there and what's not working in the quarters, for example?
Well, I think the scope of Belvedere was smaller. So the Belvedere has been a success, 100%. We did everything we wanted to do in the plan. It's going to net out positive by the end of the time based on the medium scenario. And so we're excited for that. That was good work. In terms of lessons learned from that, we really hit the nail on the head with that one. The quarters was challenged a lot by what happened during the pandemic, and the resulting decrease in values and assessments plays a big role in where the quarters is where it is now. Like, property values just bottomed right out. They're below the baseline in a lot of cases, and there just isn't the revenue there that we had hoped there was going to be, and any momentum we had coming in really got affected by the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, I may have missed it in your report, but do we know what the break-even year is under the current projection for the quarters? I'm not sure if I missed that or not.
Yeah, it's like 2040, 2038, 2040, 41? 41.
Okay, thank you, and that's it for my questions.
Great, thank you. Councillor Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you very much. I have some very basic questions I wanted to run through. So I'm just thinking about phasing some of the other catalyst projects, particularly in the downtown CRL. I just want to understand administration's process in terms of, so it talks about not bringing forward other projects until CRL revenues are sufficient. But CRL sort of are always operating a deficit position until they break even, at which point they're finished.
Well, the deficit is different than the actual repayment of the debt. So we could be in a surplus position. We're no longer in the deficit, but we're repaying the debt. And so when the debt is repaid, that's when it breaks even, and we're done.
So I'm understanding that administration's recommendation right now is that the deficit, so okay, then talk me through, so when you say surplus, what is being paid, because you're servicing the deficit?
Yeah, we're servicing the debt. We borrow to go into that, and those costs to repay that debt in the early years of the CRL put us in a deficit.
Yeah.
And as the uplift comes in, then we end up we're no longer digging into the reserve, but we're repaying the debt. I think Harm can probably explain it better, and he's online.
You know, Brett, I think you explained that correctly. So, Councillor, like in the early years, you're gonna drive the reserve into a deficit position. So paying off more debt servicing and not sufficient revenues coming in, and then that kind of balances out over the term of the CRL. But the key here is on how you phase in the capital projects. You want to make sure you don't let that reserve go into too far of a deficit, because then that's when you're getting into the use of the city's working capital. So that's when we talk about phasing in capital projects. Every time we want to approve a capital project from the CRL, we want to take a look at where the reserve is sitting, how far of a deficit is it in, and are we comfortable with even going farther into a deficit?
But okay, and I think that's the clarity I'm looking for. We're always talking about a deficit position. Yeah,
that's right. We're always talking about a deficit position. We want to be careful how fast we advance capital projects and approve new ones for the CRL, because if you do too much at once, you're going to take a deep dive into that deficit and into that reserve and create a very large deficit. So you want to manage how far you let that reserve get into a deficit, because remember, when you're getting these reserves into deficits, that's when you're eating away at the city's financial capabilities and the use of working capital. So that's something we're monitoring very carefully every time a new project is added.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's just sort of understanding, and again, I think that's very prudent, and I appreciate it. I think where I'm struggling is that I think that there are some investments needed in the downtown, for example. I think that our modeling is showing that we do break even before the expiry, before the CRL timeline is done. And so again, I'm just struggling a little bit with what that threshold is in terms of what our deficit tolerance is. Because I can appreciate a deficit, like, you know, if I think if we're projecting that the CRL is not going to pay itself back within the time frame, totally understand it makes sense to pause any further capital investment in those areas. But that's not what we're seeing in the downtown right now. And so, yeah, could you help me understand the deficit tolerance that we have?
Yeah, and that's something, Councillor, we're trying to understand as well, is like how far are we comfortable letting this CRL reserve get into a deficit position? So I don't have a number for you right now. It's something we have to kind of assess every single year, depending on like the city's working capital position and how comfortable we're letting that go into a deficit. You're right, like overall, a lot of these projects are repaying themselves over the life of the CRL. So we will see these rebound and generate sufficient revenues to pay off the debt servicing over the life of the CRL. It's just during that life, during the 20 years or 30 years, depending on which CRL you're talking about, how far do we want to drive that down and how quickly do we want to do that before it repays itself?
Yeah, well, and okay, I'll come back, but appreciate that clarity.
Thank you. Councillor Salvador?
Thank you. I was just wondering if we have an answer.
I do. So with the temporary parking program, the follow-up letters have been sent to all parking lot owners. They have until June 30th to get a development permit. Whether they have a permit or not isn't going to change the assessment value of that land. What would change is if they made property improvements. So not likely to have an impact on CRL projections.
My understanding is that there was an expectation of improvements, things like lighting or paved access or landscaped boulevards, things like that. That's part of the program as well, right?
It is, yes. And I'm not sure if Kate or Anton are still on the line. I think the significance of that improvement is still fairly low in terms of overall impact to a CRL projection. So every year we take a look at the impacts of assessed land across the CRL. So should we be incorrect in our assumptions, that will show up in our projections.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson?
Thank you. Okay, so just to understand a few of the specifics then, the Downtown Infrastructure Fund, that is unfunded right now?
That is unfunded right now.
Okay, but there have been some infrastructure upgrades that have happened with Housing Accelerator Fund infill infrastructure investment, correct? In the downtown?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, because I understand that there's some fairly urgent electrical upgrades needed. And so I'm concerned if we're not funding the Downtown Infrastructure Fund, how those would be done.
I'm not sure which electrical upgrade you're speaking of, but if the Downtown Infrastructure Fund has yet to be approved or assigned budget by council, we wouldn't fund it from the CRL. If it was council's desire to do that, then we would have to follow the due process to add that project in as funded and bring it back to council for approval.
Yeah, and this is, I think, just where I'm struggling in terms of, like, I would like to recommend that for funding, but I'm hearing that the recommendation, right, like, again, it's just what's our deficit tolerance, and I'm struggling with whether it's reasonable to fund that given it's, directly supporting uplift in new development. So can administration help me answer that question?
Well, we can take it away and look at it if directed, and then we'll bring it back with a recommendation on whether we can or can't do it and how that impacts the CRL, much like we did with Windspear. So we'd come back and say, this is what we could do, and this is how it impacts the financials of the CRL, and then ultimately council's decision.
Okay, that's helpful. I think we could maybe do that, I can do that offline. We can just get a bit more information. And just want to clarify as well, district energy could be paid for through the Downtown Infrastructure Fund?
We did specifically list it as an eligible expense under that, yes.
Great. And then just a clarification, the Jasper Avenue Vision Phase 3, the report notes that the design will be done in 2027, but I think that...
unfortunately there was a mistake. It should be noted as preliminary design completion for Q2 2029.
2029. Okay, great. So we're not at risk of sort of completing designs and then not being able to implement or having a lag there.
No, and as we would do for projects that reach that stage of development being completed, we would inform council through the regular process of Budget and Infrastructure Committee.
Perfect, appreciate that. The 100th Street Bridge, really exciting about the grant application. Do we have a timeline on when we would hear back from that?
No, we don't have a timeline on when we'll hear back. We're very excited too, but we don't have a timeline on when we'll hear back.
Okay, and was that full cost or partial cost?
I believe we submitted it for partial.
Partial. And then have we ever explored the potential, because I know there are some sort of immediately adjacent landowners that are really keen on that bridge. Have we ever explored the potential of a local improvement levy to help fund?
We haven't explored that. I'm not the expert, but I'm not sure how that would work. Who benefits directly from that, and how we would justify a local improvement levy on a piece of infrastructure like that? We would have to take a long, hard look at that.
Okay, because I'm just thinking of other, like I think, anyway, there is a large installation on 118th Avenue that I think was paid for by a local improvement levy. It's the BAT. So,
Councillor, it's Mike Gunther here from Legal Services. Just jumping in, the trouble with local improvement levies is there has to be a defined ascertainable benefit to a group of properties. And so how we be able to, with that bridge, identify which properties receive more benefit from that piece of infrastructure, I think would be a little bit difficult in terms of complying with the legal obligations. So it's certainly something that could be looked at. But from a legal perspective, we'd have to be very careful that we're not stepping outside our authorities there.
great. Okay, appreciate that. Just the update that's provided on the event park negotiations and the land purchase. Again, just want to confirm there's no buyback option in that agreement?
For the event park will be city-owned in the end.
And the land as well, like all of the land?
All of the land in event park is being transferred to the city as part of the whole event park package, yes.
Great. I'll probably just stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott, did you want to make the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I move that attachment 5 of the March 2026 of the March 26, 2026 Urban Planning Economy Report UPE 03256 remain private pursuant to Section 30, which is the disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body, and Section 32, privilege information of the Access of Information Act.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? I think there's further questions. Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, just one other piece. Recognize we've just talked about the list of catalyst projects that are not funded right now. I have been hearing a bit more conversation around the potential of adding the convention center, and just wondering what administration recommends in terms of some potential steps to advance that.
So I think we need to have some initial conversations. We don't, my team as yet doesn't understand the scope or size of what they would be asking for. And then what that would look like in terms of catalytic effect, whether it would make sense as a serial project, and then go to the province and see if it would make sense to open the serial again to add that. So there'd be 3 pieces of information we need to know before we can make a recommendation on what the course of action would be. I would think a council memo perhaps might be the best way to answer those preliminary questions, and then follow up if council needs more information at that time.
Okay, perfect. Did you want a motion to that effect, or it's just?
No, I think Councillor Stevenson is what we can do is we'll provide a memo in terms of what that process looks like, so it's clear in terms of what it's going to take to do something like this. We can have conversations with the province to gauge their openness and willingness to take a look at that, and potentially bring back what we've heard at our next InterGov update. And then should we require a motion at that time, that would be a good place to consider it.
Great. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Maybe just so because I know we're trying to get in the habit of like, okay, if you're going to do that, were you planning on doing that? And that, because I want you to do that, and I just want to make sure that if you were planning on doing that, then I can see not doing a motion. Otherwise, I actually think it sometimes is good to just give direction on that.
Yes, this has been a conversation that's been circling for a while, so this is work we were planning on doing.
Great, yeah, because I think there's a lot of opportunity, I think, especially with work happening in other cities on their convention centers. We might benefit from some more substantive investments that would likely, I think, trigger that catalyst mark, and I frankly don't see how we do it in our next 4-year budget. So if we can tie it into that work, that might give us a way to activate and make sure we're not falling behind potentially one of our neighbors to the south who are getting a big shiny thing coming up in a couple of years. So okay, great. Well, if that's coming, then I'll that intergov update's May 6th, I think. Is that clerks? Anyone know?
There is a non-regular, but I don't believe we have
We don't have a
an
set date.
agenda, no.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Well, soon-ish, we'll get that information. Okay, great. No other questions? Please vote to keep attachment 5 in private, subject to those sections. I assumed nobody wanted to speak to keeping an attachment in private.
We have all the votes,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Knack.
Please display the vote. That is carried 5-0. Okay, great, thank you. So now we're moving on to the last item of business, which is item 7.5, the River Crossing Capital Profile Adjustment. Looking at the time and the fact that we have 6 speakers would suggest to me we'll get the presentation, we'll hear from the speakers, ask any questions, and then we won't have time to make a decision. The question I think we'll need to figure out is if there's time, how our next council meeting is looking like versus our next commit. No, the next council meeting is looking not good. So more likely we could send it to the next committee meeting to ask questions of admin.
Unless it's time sensitive, that would be perhaps the better option.
Okay, we'll find out from admin how time sensitive this is. Maybe they'll talk about that in their presentation. If not, I'll ask the question once we've done all of that to figure out the right place to go. But we'll start with the presentation. Please go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Knack and Executive Committee. We are here today to discuss the River Crossing Community Redevelopment Project. Administration is seeking approval of a capital profile adjustment that will allow for the construction of phase 1 of the project. This investment, if approved, represents council progressing on what is considered one of the most important redevelopment opportunities in the city and a culmination of decades of work and planning. Joining me today are Avril McCullough, River Crossing Project Lead, and Neil Ozaduk, the Director of Land Development, as well as Tom Vodnak, member of our Legal Services team, and Ms. McCullough and Mr. Ozaduk will walk us through the majority of the presentation. Next slide, and over to you, Avril.
Thanks, Chris. We thought it would be helpful to start with some context. West Rossdale is a part of our city that is steeped in history. This was a gathering place for Indigenous peoples where trade, ceremony, and diplomacy took place for thousands of years. And this is later the location where Edmonton and Alberta were founded. Nations across Treaty 6, 7, and 8 and the Métis Nation have connections to this place. Today it is the heart of our river valley, directly between Strathcona and downtown. It is home to the River Hawks at Remax Field and the Ortona Armory, but beyond that lacks other opportunities to gather, stay, and spend time. River Crossing is a city-led transformational community redevelopment project in this area. The vision, which was set by Council in 2015, is for a place that embraces, respects, and celebrates our long history while creating excitement and enthusiasm about our future. It will be an exceptional place that makes us proud to call Edmonton home. It will be a vibrant community and a cultural center that reflects the history and tells the stories of this place. It will provide new housing and new economic opportunities, and it will be connected by mass transit and an efficient transportation system that includes new active mode connections. Next slide, please. The River Crossing vision will be brought to life through a series of interconnected and supportive projects that will be implemented over the next number of years. These projects include the River Crossing Community Redevelopment Project, which is the project that we're here to speak about today, the River Crossing Park, which is funded for concept design, Touch the Water Promenade, which has completed preliminary design but was not funded for delivery in the last capital budget cycle, and adaptive reuse of the Rossdale Power Plant. The city currently has a request for information out related to the Rossdale Power Plant. In addition to these city-led projects that will drive toward achievement of the vision for River Crossing, at full build-out, River Crossing is expected to create up to 2,600 new units for 4,000 people, plus up to an additional 65,000 square feet of commercial space. Next slide, please. The journey to where we are today has been long and deliberate. It has included numerous stages of both public and rights-based engagement, planning, and design. This started with the vision set by Council in 2015, which I shared earlier, followed by the development of the Heritage Interpretive Plan, which set the foundation for an urban design plan informed by historical and cultural understanding. Next came the development of the River Crossing Business Plan, which was approved by Council in 2019 and enabled through amendments to the Rossdale Area Redevelopment Plan and initial capital funding by 2021. This allowed administration to take the next steps in designing the community through the completion of the Rossdale Transportation Network Concept Plan and the River Crossing Servicing Plan. Meanwhile, the city and EPCOR negotiated a land transfer that saw the ownership of the Rossdale Power Plant and surrounding lands transfer from EPCOR to the city. While the business plan and studies that followed articulate what will be implemented in the area, the city has also developed the River Crossing Indigenous Involvement Approach, which articulates how we will work to implement the vision with Indigenous peoples, rights holders with connections to this land at the table with us. What this looks like will vary depending on project stage and the specifics of the project itself, but this considers involvement in engagement, information sharing, economic opportunities, and procurement, and historic reviews and monitoring, for example. Redeveloping a large area in an urban center, especially in a location like West Rossdale, carries complexity, but we're not doing it alone. Coordination and collaboration has been a central feature of River Crossing dating back to the initial vision. As we take steps to implement River Crossing, in addition to Indigenous involvement, this means working closely with teams across the city and with the broader community. Next slide, please. I'll now hand it over to Neil to discuss the specifics of the River Crossing Community Redevelopment Project. Thank you.
Thank you, Avril. The River Crossing Community Redevelopment Project will deliver the enabling infrastructure for new infill development. It will create the footprint for other aspects of the River Crossing Plan through adjustments to the transportation network in the community. This development concept is what is reflected in the business plan, the Rossdale Area Redevelopment Plan. We're currently planning and designing Phase 1, shown in the yellow hatching on the slide, and we anticipate development to progress north and west over the next 10 to 20 years, market dependent. The whole River Crossing project area consists of 44 acres, the majority of which will be public spaces, like the parks and amenities that Avril mentioned earlier. 13 acres of the total 44 is identified as land to be redeveloped, and roughly 60% of that is city-owned land. Much of the existing infrastructure is in poor condition, in the wrong alignment, or has insufficient capacity for the concept reflected in the plan. As such, the city will have an important role to play here in enabling redevelopment in this area. Our goal is to remove the barriers for the private sector by rebuilding the utilities and roadways and creating shovel-ready parcels for them to build on. Next slide, please. Today, we're seeking funding for the construction of Phase 1, informed by the River Crossing Business Plan, the River Crossing Servicing Plan, and the Rossdale Transportation Network Concept Plan. This phase will include the construction of 102 Street between 96th Ave and 97th Ave, full signalization of the new intersection at 102 and 97th Ave, reconstruction of a portion of 96th Avenue, new and upgraded underground utility infrastructure, and the creation of 4 lots, 3 which will be low to mid-rise, and 1 which will be medium to high-rise. Sustainability is a component of all of the city's land development projects, and River Crossing is no exception. One potential approach to help us achieve this goal is through the inclusion of district energy, which will be discussed at an upcoming council meeting. The funding requested today does not include the funds required for the construction of the district energy within Phase 1. As Avril mentioned, work in River Crossing is guided by the River Crossing Indigenous Involvement Approach. This plays a role in the project in a few ways. An Indigenous monitoring program will be in effect for any work that causes ground disturbance. This was already put into place during our geotechnical investigation that was completed last fall and will continue through construction. In addition to this, we are working towards the inclusion of ceremony in advance of our construction. Historical Resource Act clearances are required for this project. We have an archaeologist on our project team, and we are working through each step of the requirements in alignment with that regulatory process. As we approach procurement, we will work with the city's sustainable procurement team to design an inclusive procurement process. And as we approach land sales, we will align our listing process with the River Crossing Indigenous involvement approach to ensure a fair and equitable approach to land sales. Next slide, please, and I will pass it back to Chris.
Thanks, Neil. River Crossing supports many of Council's priorities and is well aligned with the defined principles. This slide reflects some of the River Crossing's contributions. As part of the Center City Priority Growth Area, River Crossing is an area where we expect there to be development and investment supportive of a growing population. The uniqueness of this project is that it offers housing, economic development, reconciliation, transit and transportation connectivity opportunities. It is planned to create a destination that is meaningful to many Edmontonians and rights holders, enhancing the connections to downtown and supporting vibrancy in the heart of our city. It will create new public spaces and amenities respectful of the cultural importance of this land and reflective of priorities identified in the city plan. And it will leverage public investment to catalyze private investments, especially in the context of the land development work, which will allow the city to sell shovel-ready land for residential development. Next slide, please. As mentioned at the outset of the presentation, advancing Phase 1 of the River Crossing Community Redevelopment Project is a meaningful step forward in a journey that has unfolded over decades and represents an important milestone for the community. It's an important opportunity for our city to grow while also reflecting and celebrating our history. Thank you for your time. We'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have following registered speakers.
Thank you very much. We will bring up our speakers. You can all stay seated. We're going to bring up the ones in person to the same area that the others have been. I think everyone's been here all day, so they've probably seen that. That includes Eric Gormley, who will be first up, then Linda Duncan, then Tom Radford, who are all three here in person, Christine Kowalczyk, who is online, I saw already, Gerald Delorme. Is Gerald with us online? Gerald Delorme?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Okay, perfect. You'll be number 5. And then finally, Summer Grambois. Oh, there you are. Hi. Perfect. Thank you. So as you all heard multiple times, 5 minutes, the timer's on the screen there, so you can't miss it. And I'll be very firm because we want to get your presentations, ask any quick questions, and then we're going to make a decision of where to send this. So Eric Gormley, please go ahead. Let's just make sure there we go. Mike, yeah, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Eric Gormley. I'm a board member of ERVCC. Today, City Council is being asked to approve $15 million for infrastructure to facilitate the sale of land that is currently the parking lot for Remax Field. This land is to be Phase 1 of Rossdale development, as we heard, and it's meant to house high and medium rise buildings. Rossdale's land should be saved from this fate for many reasons. A key one is its historical value to the city. I first took notice of Rossdale during the Alberta Energy hearings in 1999, when EPCOR wanted to replace the old power plant with a new one. First Nations voices at that hearing spoke of Rossdale as a special place in their history and culture, and the way they fought in those meetings told you they meant it. This led to the traditional burial grounds being memorialized. Some have called Rossdale the most important historic site in Alberta. The birthplace of the province, the fur trade, the beginnings of Edmonton, and before that, for thousands of years, a place where First Nations gathered. Historians speculate that both its rich human history and its natural features, the low banks on both sides making river crossings possible, make Rossdale a historic site of national importance. Next slide, please. Yet one fellow who studied Rossdale says most locals know nothing about that history. Common knowledge of our own more recent River Valley history is just as murky. 200 years ago, Rossdale was a Métis society that knew no policemen, clergymen, hospital, or group home. Yet there were families there, a field of potatoes, a campground for First Nations, an annual New Year's dance with fiddlers, and there was relief and joy when the boats came back from Hudson's Bay in the fall with goods like tea and tobacco. A year earlier, they had returned to find Rossdale Flats flooded and the fort temporarily moved. The Plains of Abraham in Quebec City is a famous historic site. It attracts 1.8 million visitors per year. Its 200 acres of parkland provides the context for the site and now makes Quebec a more resilient city. This could be Edmonton's future. Next slide, please. The city of Edmonton owns most of the open land in Rossdale. It acquired the baseball field parking lot in 1954. Between 1935 and 1982, the city bought an additional 28 lots south of 97th Avenue. Since 1982, the city has added 9 more lots to its holdings. But the city didn't just buy land in Rossdale. In the 40s, it bought what is now Riverside Golf Course. In the 50s, it acquired White Mud Ravine and got fields, which are now Gold Bar Park. In the 60s, it purchased Terwilliger and Fort Edmonton parks, and Rundle and Hermitage lands came at this time too. Next slide, please. This was an ongoing pattern of investing in Edmonton's future that began before 1930, when lands from Highlands to Laurier Park, including creeks and ravines, were acquired by the city. This is our history too. The key was securing the land. Previous councils and administrations did that with Rossdale. For 100 years, the city followed a plan. With its historical importance, Rossdale should be recognized as an ongoing place of connection in this pantheon of parks and be protected. We urge City Council to reconsider river crossing rather than subsidize a fuzzy future that appears to be a placeholder for Touch the Water and other projects that have never demonstrated their need. $15 million could be invested into affordable housing for First Nations, or it could be leveraged with Edmonton Area Land Trust to invest in natural areas and River Valley land. The money could be used to turn Rossdale lands into a historical park. There is a difference between subsidizing development and investing in an enduring legacy that will grow in worth and remind us of our values for all time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Linda Duncan. Please come on up.
Just say when. Thank you. Great to be before you, and new councillors, welcome to City Council. I'm the president of the North Saskatchewan River Valley Conservation Society, and my colleague Tom Radford is also with our society, but he's our vice president of Heritage, and he will also speak. We are appearing on this because we share a concern with the previous speaker. I lived for 15 years in Ross Flats, that it was historically known by, and while I was living there, we developed Rossdale, the Living Heritage Park plan, which was submitted to City Council. It's in the City Archives, it should be in the City Library, and we worked with 2 university professors and developed a Rossdale Living Heritage Park plan, interpretation plan, looking at examples around the world on taking a former workers and industrial area and turning it into a heritage interpretation park. 40 years later, still nothing has happened. Our concern is that the heritage interpretation plan was apparently approved in 2017 and nothing has happened. And yet, what are we here now talking about? We're talking about using taxpayer dollars to subsidize the development of housing and the movement of a road. And that's very disappointing. So this is put forward as it's this new development, the river crossing development, which is in fact just Ross Flats. The area that is to be developed as housing and west of there towards the legislature always was part of Ross Flats and was housing. But over time, the housing just ran down and nothing was ever done to develop it. We're not opposed to development or even the development of housing in the river valley. What troubles us is, under the guise of a heritage interpretation development, nothing is happening with heritage interpretation. And 50, 60 years later, the power plant still sits there crumbling. And I can remember appearing at a meeting about 25 or 30 years ago with then Betty Hughes, a former councillor, you know, joining the crowd and saying, let's get on with it, let's use this building. When we were working on the proposal for a national urban park, one of the proposals we wanted to bring forward, and unfortunately that's been sort of put aside for a while because of the provincial intervention, we thought a great center point for people learning about the river valley, learning about everything that's offered, how you can rent a bike, where the nature interpretation is and so forth, could have been that power plant. And we hope it still develops so that it's not just a commercial enterprise. But it's our hope that the city moves forward on the heritage interpretation, and we proposed 40 years ago that the trail be continued around the power plant and the water plant and the fire training session. So it's still all just talk. People love to come to the other side of the river, to that hill, looking over the new beautiful bridge. By hundreds. In the summertime, you see all kinds of people sitting there because they like to sit there and look towards the river valley. And my concern is, one of those focal points is the legislative building, and yet we're going to block it by proposing to build high-rises, blocking what that visage is. The history of Rossdale, as Eric said, is Ross Flats. That's where the province was inaugurated. That's where Tom's grandparents arrived by train as journalists to write about the inauguration. It's where the buffalo hunting horses were trained, where exactly the housing is proposed. It's where the fort was. It's where Louis Riel's grandmother lived along the river valley in Rossdale, where I lived for 15 years. So I would hope that council gives serious consideration to not just moving fast on the development of the housing, but also genuinely move forward on the heritage interpretation. We are looking forward to meeting with the heritage folk in the administration next week. We only found out through CBC that there is a heritage strategy and that it's going to include natural areas. So we're really looking forward to working with the city about including people heritage and natural heritage, and that it should be a big framework, not just one little spot at the power plant in Ross Flats. So I look forward to your questions and really look forward to working with the administration on generally coming up with a natural heritage and a living heritage strategy right along our North Saskatchewan River. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Tom Radford. Please come on up to the mic.
Hi. I'm a filmmaker, basically. I've made 50 films on Western Canada since the 1970s. Led to me being awarded an Order of Canada 3 years ago in terms of describing, articulating Edmonton history, Alberta history to a national audience. And now with my work with the North Saskatchewan River Valley Conservation Society, where I'm a vice president in charge of heritage. When I started my work, I read a wonderful book by a Saskatchewan historian called W.S. Morton, who in 1946 had written a book called Under Western Skies. And Morton was the first historian to describe the North Saskatchewan River as the Great River. And he, in his chapters on Fort Edmonton, saw a time when Edmonton was one of the most important cities in Canada. It was the place where David Thompson and Charlotte Small, his Métis wife, had developed the great map of the Northwest, which basically mapped North America from Hudson Bay to the mouth of the Columbia River. And it was a time when the fur trade opened up a country, built a national economy, and Edmonton was right at the center of that development. So I feel, you know, Rossdale, it's amazing. You walk around it, and they're just all of these benchmarks for what Edmonton developed from. And I think it would just be so tragic if we, in a sense, threw that away. You know, and now with the coming of climate change, the river valley and the river itself becomes so much more important than it has been. When you think of the melting of the glaciers, these proposals to divert rivers, the whole problem of these coal mines along the eastern slopes, which will put selenium in our water. They're currently already testing things on the Clearwater River that flows into the Saskatchewan. Our river valley becomes just an important mirror of what the city can be. And I think any development that goes forward should take that into account. I think there's a chance here for Edmonton to be, you know, an international center for developing heritage programs that support biodiversity and a renewable society. And the River Valley is right at the heart of that possibility. So we at the Conservation Society must be a part of any conversation that plans the future of river crossing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Christine Kowalchuk. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Committee. Edmonton River Valley Conservation Coalition urges you to not approve the $15 million river crossing capital profile adjustment. Next slide, please. We urge you to instead support river valley protection and pursue housing development elsewhere, particularly downtown and, as we heard earlier this afternoon, the quarters. Following are our reasons for opposing this river crossing funding. Next slide, please. Ecological and wildlife corridor concerns. The river crossing and touch the water projects will greatly disrupt, if not destroy, the North Saskatchewan River Valley as a functional wildlife corridor through our city. This corridor extends all the way from the Rocky Mountains to Elk Island and then Hudson's Bay, and currently the greatest pinch point is Edmonton's Central River Valley. We need to restore this area, not degrade it further. The recently approved Ribbon of Green strategic plan states, as the city of Edmonton grows, the river valley and ravine system faces increasing pressure from urban development and use. The Ribbon of Green strategic plan helps support and sustain an interconnected system that meets the needs of the environment while providing diverse recreational and cultural experiences for those who work, play, and/or live in Edmonton. As this Rossdale project would bring an end to the wildlife corridor, it completely undermines the Ribbon of Green. Next slide, please. Floodplain concerns. The report acknowledges that flooding is a real risk, but then says nothing more about it. Flooding here is probable and perhaps even inevitable, especially considering the ecological crisis and increasing extreme weather events. The city recently allowed EPCOR to cut 577 trees in the river valley and build concrete berms as part of their $65 million flood mitigation projects around the Rossdale and E.L. Smith water treatment plants. Cities everywhere are removing concrete barriers and renaturalizing their floodplains as the only way to effectively work with water during flooding. Next slide, please. Concerns with lack of Indigenous consultation and public engagement. The report uses obfuscating language to talk about consultation. It says the project identifies several areas of focus that seek opportunities for inclusion across various project stages: project engagement, communications and information sharing, historical reviews and monitoring, economic reconciliation and ownership and operations. Not once does it actually say that Indigenous people were consulted or how, or that they gave their consent for this project to proceed. What if they simply said, no, Rossdale should not be developed? In fact, buried below in the report is this statement: given this previous engagement and the limitations imposed by existing decisions guiding this project, the city's engagement decision assessment process determined that engagement would not be recommended for this work. Next slide, please. Cultural and historical concerns. Rossdale was a gathering space for Indigenous nations long before settlers arrived, and it also is the historical heart of this city. It's also a formal burial ground. This cultural and historical significance should be honored in Rossdale by leaving the area natural and incorporating existing historical structures into museums and cultural centers that tell this story. Instead, the project proposes just a small reconciliation park that is not even at the river's edge. Instead, the river's edge is taken up by Touch the Water, an expensive promenade that will involve much tree cutting and replace nature with concrete. The only positive change this project can say about the important cultural history of this area is that it will create additional space between the traditional burial grounds and Fort Edmonton Cemetery and the roadway. But the burial ground covers a far larger area than the current memorial site. Why is the city considering building on a former burial ground? Next slide, please. Financial concerns. This project is not even financially sound. As the report says, revenue from land sales will partially offset development costs, but it is expected that costs will exceed revenue and the project will result in an overall financial loss. Generally speaking, other profitable land development activities offset unprofitable projects such as this. If the project won't even pay for itself, why do it? Furthermore, the estimated $840 million in construction value of this area is just a one-off and minuscule compared to the value of the land in a natural state. Selling off and developing the river valley here is akin to killing the goose that lays the golden egg. The city would be far better off incentivizing residential development downtown, including affordable housing units, and keeping Rossdale as parkland as an adjacent amenity for those residences. Protecting the river valley and repurposing existing historical structures in Rossdale honor the culture and history of the area, but also help create a sense of identity for all Edmontonians and present a major tourism opportunity. Ecotourism is, according to many studies, the single largest tourism growth area today. Please do not approve this $15 million expenditure/subsidy. Instead, we ask you to support
Thank you very much. That is your time. And sorry, I'm just going to be real.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gerald DeLorme, please go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi there. My name's Gerald DeLorme. I've been speaking for our ancestors that can't speak, who've been dug up and tossed away in landfills. Our ancestors' skulls ending up on people's mantles over the years. In 2014, in the executive committee, it's like deja vu again. I made a declaration using the international law outlining our sacred site down at Rossdale. So far, the city hasn't honored that with the knowledge of they're going to go keep on building on a known sacred site. As we did our progress, and we also found there is a criminal code which the city of Edmonton has been breaking since at least when the power plant was built. And that code was 385, which was protecting the graves of our ancestors, or Indian graves. But that changed in the 1950s, 53, 54, to include a more inclusive. The Criminal Code of Canada, Section 430, mischief including damaging property, interfering with grave sites, and items buried in them. And the Criminal Code of Canada, Section 349, interferes with disturbing and desecrating human remains, directly covers graves, including Indigenous burials. I've stated this many times to the city of Edmonton that that entire area, which I declared as a sacred site, has burials. Not only that, that within time, excuse me, bones do break down. And with that in mind, our ancestors' bones being scattered all over that area through development. And we had an investigation done back with one of the archaeologists, and we had found actual remains that were broken down. And he apologized here just recently. He says, you know what, Gerald, I was looking for grave shafts, but he wasn't looking for the minute bones that were broken down, and they're everywhere. Because we had done our own investigation with a fellow that grave witched, and he said, Gerald, this area is laden with all sorts of remains. This is sacred to us. And we've never at one point in time ever been consulted on this from start to finish, and even to this day. And we've tried to speak out many, many times, but And it says using other, using other indigenous consent to override the actual claimant nation is considered bad faith consultation. We were the major band in the Edmonton district, Beaver Hills House people. The Indian agent of the day split us up and made these smaller bands like Papa Chase and Tommy Lapatac's band. We haven't gone anywhere. We're not extinct anymore. And 25 years, 30 years now, we've been asking the city of Edmonton to stop. And actually in 2008, to avoid all this, I told the city of Edmonton classified Rossdale as an historical site. That fell through the cracks. Even though after 3 years of trying to get the answers to the city, they didn't listen. It should be classified as historical site, plain and simple, sacred site, which by law, which I sent the city council and the mayor just recently, not only on May 26th, or when did I send that? January 26, 2026, an email outlining, and also yesterday outlining what international law and UNDRIP talks about. This is precious to us. Our ancestors are buried there. And we've seen, I've talked to many, many people that were not recorded, that have dug up our ancestors. And just recently at the Eco Station, this one fellow, I talked to him, he said the Rossdale power plant is haunted. So building on a sacred site, I can't understand the mindset. Many, like I've said before, many people come and gone for the city council, administration, and they're missing the most important aspect, that there's a richer history here, which means forgotten and put set aside for development. Like I said, we were never consulted, and this really, really bothers us. And by law, the city should have at least refused to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last is Summer Grandbois. Please come on up.
Is this on? Okay. So obviously I'm here because of, the allies and my own people there speaking. For the record, I appear today by special appearance. I do not appear as a citizen, a stakeholder, or under municipal, provincial, or federal jurisdictions. My presence does not grant authority, does not concede standing, and does not create any agreement or participation in your process. I stand solely as a Chipewyan woman and a living signatory to Treaty 6 adhesion. My authority comes from the treaty relationship itself, not from any system created afterward. I will not cross into your laws, your constitution, or your Section 35 frameworks. I remain entirely within the treaty. I am not ignorant to the fact that Canada uses its lands and resources departments to manage First Nations reserves, but I do not stand under those systems, nor do they speak for me, as they operate entirely under federal jurisdiction. My standing is with treaty, and Treaty 6 supersedes the limits federal, provincial, municipal jurisdictions on these lands. For the record, I reject the river crossing capital profile adjustment. I'm here because River Crossing report contains the contradiction that cannot stand. It claims Indigenous involvement is foundational. Yet it also states that engagement would not be recommended for this work. This is not involvement, this is not consultation, this is not consent. This is unilateral action on treaty land. This is not new. In 2018, during the Touch of Water Promenade discussions, Cold Lake First Nations said no. The project advanced anyway. That showed clearly that the process was never designed to honor the treaty or the nations. Someone always gets paid, and the development goes ahead. I've already exercised my treaty standing once in this valley, during the Prairie Sky Gondola. A retired judge stood afterwards and said 5 times, "I hope this doesn't end up in court." He added that if the governments had been doing arbitrations all along, that we would not be in the predicament that we are in today. There would have been a paper trail. That is the first warning. This is the second. When the municipal, provincial, and federal governments proceed on treaty land without treaty parties, they are acting under de facto authority, not lawful treaty authority. They are exceeding the limits of the Crown's delegated political interests, operating outside the scope of the authority they were granted, acting ultra vires to the treaty relationship, attempting to exercise powers never granted to them by the treaty. His Majesty holds a limited political interest in these lands. The political interest delegated to His Majesty's governments is even more limited. Yet these governments continue to treat treaty land as if it's theirs to redesign, subdivide, regulate, and sell. This is not lawful under treaty. It is merely convenient. For the record, no permission is given to proceed with this project. For the record, I reject this project. This is not a request. This is not an assertion. This is not a correction. This is a correction, for the record, from a treaty signatory whose authority predates and supersedes all Canadian constructs. I am not here to negotiate. I'm not here to ask for recognition. I'm not here to enter your laws. I'm here to correct the record. The treaty is still alive, and so are the signatories. Merci.
Thank you very much. And now we'll see if there are any questions. Lots of great speakers and detailed presentations. Councillor Stevenson, I see you reaching to, yep, please go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just to Speaker Duncan, if you don't mind coming back up to the podium. So again, really appreciate all of our speakers today joining us and sharing perspectives, and certainly some questions that I'll take forward to our administrative staff as well. And so I just wanted to hone in. So I think I heard sort of, I think that you're supportive of the heritage interpretation plan, but just sort of concerned about its implementation.
We are supportive of there being a heritage interpretation plan, but we're concerned that there needs to possibly be a rethink of it and actually deliver on it. We're delighted that the city apparently is in the process of developing a new heritage strategy, and the heritage strategy will look at built heritage and also natural heritage. And because this is the River Valley, and because this is somewhat of a heritage interpretation plan, I think it would be good to look at that within the concept of the entire River Valley. We think it would be unfortunate if we just stopped at looking at reclaiming a power plant and instead looked at, okay, what about interpretation and giving information right across the stretch of the river, which Ross Flats really was very spread along and across the river. We think it's too narrow right now, but our biggest concern is that we are moving forward on this initiative with zero investment in the actual heritage interpretation side of it or consultation on that. And I forgot to add too, we are 100% against the cementification of the riverbank from bridge to bridge.
Yeah, no,
which contradicts the River Valley bylaw and all of the policies that council have adopted.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, what we're sort of looking at today, I think, is apart from that broader touch the water, but appreciate that feedback. And I think where I'm feeling a bit torn is that, you know, these are some of the first, you know, really concrete steps that I feel are moving us towards implementation in terms of like the new interpretive park. So again, just want to understand if you think that, you know, any redevelopment of the lands there is reasonable, or you're saying it's sort of just needing both of those things to happen?
We tend to agree that it would be preferable that greater attention was given to Ross Flats, River Flats. We don't have very many flat lands within the River Valley left, and it needs to be given greater credence. My concern is that we're looking at the river crossing as we're going to develop housing. When in fact, if you look at the documents, the pretext is false. It makes one think that all this development is going to be about gaining access to the river and the amenities and interpreting the river. But here we are with the first big expenditure, but the city has absolutely nothing to do with that. It has to do with developing housing in the river valley. So that is troubling.
Okay, well, I think that's an interesting question. I think, you know, you were mentioning taxpayer dollars as well, and I think the sort of unique situation we're in here is that these are revenues derived from other activities, like through real estate, land enterprise. So these are proceeds from land development rather than taxpayer dollars. But I take your point. You're sort of looking for that investment in the holistic approach. Yeah.
We are concerned that the first step of finally having some action on this river crossing plan is that we're going to work on roads, and we're going to develop housing, in some cases high rises. I would raise the obvious question is, where are people going to park when they go to what was John Ducey Park?
Yeah.
And are they now going to park on the supposed green space that would be saved? So there are a lot of big questions that we would like to ask about what will happen with the development of this housing to people coming to the valley and using those amenities.
Yeah, and certainly happy to ask those questions. And I think too, just sort of the funding model as well, because I think you know, some of it is meant to be self-funding as well. So appreciate those questions. Definitely more when we get back to administration for that maybe. But thank you again to all of our speakers.
Yeah, thank you. So those are all the questions. As I'm looking at the agenda, the next closest agenda is still the council meeting. So I think what we'll do is requisition. If for some reason it doesn't look like we can deal with it there due to agenda management, the next week is an executive committee.
We could postpone it again.
Yeah, so I think at this point, I'll just say requisition.
Requisition.
And with two people having said that, this will go to the April 15th council meeting.
Correct.
Depending on the circumstances, it may be discussed there with questions of admin. If there's too much else on the agenda, it is a 2-day council meeting, we can make an agenda decision at that point. So appreciating that clears off this item then. And so what would happen is to go to council, and we would be just hearing or asking questions of administration at that point, as we asked all our questions of speakers. Are there any notices of motion or motions without customary notice? I'm not seeing any. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.